Chapter 43, Shift Back. I slowed my pace and started to stalk quietly through the woods for the last few hundred meters from where I left the disassembled core. I still wasn't convinced something could survive after having its head removed, but 2 hours ago, I was convinced people couldn't change into animals, and vampires didn't exist outside of books and TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And look at me now. Imagine what I could know in another 2 hours. Banishing these extra thoughts, I concentrated on my new senses and tried to hear any movement up ahead. I could smell the sickly burnt sweet smell from here, but I had no way of knowing if that was from the fight or if he was still there. I had seen Sam move to circle around in the opposite direction when I left the trail and knew he was just a thought away. As I crept through the woods, I found that I was thoroughly enjoying this. The caution, the slow stepping to make sure nothing was disturbed as I placed my weight on my paw. The sheer tension in my body and the ready-to-explode muscles at my command, it was all making me euphoric. As I moved around a tree, my eyes picked up a leg in the middle of the trail and an arm slightly farther off. I didn't see any movement from them, but my instincts still called for caution. I reached for the familiar mental pressure that was Sam and spoke, "I can see a few limbs and they are not moving. You see anything from there? By the ancestors, this thing smells horrible. I can see its body but not the head. No movement, so I think it's safe. I will get closer, be ready to back me up if it shows movement." I moved my eyes to where I figured Sam would be, and closer than I expected I saw a shadow from a tree become larger as Sam stepped out from behind it and slowly entered the clearing. After a few cautious moments, I could see him visibly relax and start moving around in a more relaxed manner. He still looked like he was trying to hold his breath though, and I found that slightly funny. Without waiting for him to say anything, I stood up to my full height and entered the pathway. The vampire was just as torn up as I left him, so chances are that the stories of them healing were wrong or at least exaggerated. I started looking around more and saw where my clothes exploded when I made the change to this tiger form. My jacket that I had just tied around my waist was still okay, but my shirt, pants and shoes were all shredded. No saving them at all. Leaving them where they lay, I turned to head back to Sam. "Clothing is going to be an issue, isn't it?" I asked Sam. Sam chuckled, "Yeah, don't try to go the stretchy route either. If they stretch enough to stay on after the change, it is never comfortable. It's the reason I run around with just a light t-shirt and shorts all the time now." He shook his back leg, and I could see a bundle of cloth tied there. Closer inspection showed a dark band, like a hair tie holding the cloth to his leg. That can't be very comfortable. Less uncomfortable than being caught nude walking out of the forest. I have enough rumors going around about me as it is. Think I will have to place a backpack in a tree near the house for emergencies. Thinking of that, I remembered the backpack the vampire dropped before coming after me. Be right back. In a soft trot I made my way back up the trail and found the backpack where he had left it. I bit the hanger loop and made my way back to Sam. By the time I returned, Sam was back in human form wearing his Levi shorts and standing over a pile made of vampire parts. When I returned, Sam spoke to me. "The stories say the only way to make sure these bloodsuckers stay dead is if they are burnt. They're not very flammable until they are torn apart, but once they are, their bile or venom is very easy to light on fire." He held out a piece of cloth he had torn off from the vampire's clothing, or maybe it was some that I tore off in my effort to dismember. Sam then pulled out a lighter and held it to the cloth until it caught fire, then he dropped it on the pile. Remarkably fast, the fire spread to all parts of the vampire, and in a shorter time than one would think possible the vampire was a pile of ashes. The whole thing took maybe 15 minutes. When the fire started going up fast, Sam spoke, "You should toss the backpack on the fire, it won't last long." I looked for the pressure in my mind to tell him I wanted to keep it and learn what I could about him and why he was here, but the pressure was gone. So I just shook my head and walked back to my pile of clothes and carried the remaining bits with my phone and wallet in them back to the bag, dropping them next to it. We stayed to make sure the fire went out and didn't start a forest fire while burning, not that there was much of a chance that would happen this early in spring. As we watched the ashes settle into the ground, I waited for Sam to retake his wolf form. Once he did, I asked my next big question. So, how do I change back? Is there a certain time I have to wait before I can? From what you told me about embracing the hot spot in your mind that I equate to my excess anger, then changing back should be as simple as finding that heat in your body and pushing it back to your mind. Of course, that's only if it works the same as my change. I laughed across our connection. Hot spot? It's a white-hot torch in my head. That's a little different from me. I have a ball of anger in my head. It flares up rather easily, but with time it is changing to just a hot spot to embrace to make the change happen. But even now, if I get too angry it forces the change, so keep aware of your emotions. Hope my method works for you because I don't know any other way. My head hung down as I mentally searched my body for the warmth I could feel. I started gathering it at my feet, and as it moved through my body, I felt it get hotter and hotter. When the flame reached my throat, it was hard to keep together. But once I managed to push it into my head, it seemed to click into place, and I felt my body go malleable again. Suddenly, I was standing on my own two bare feet. As I stood there fully nude, I felt weak, like I had lost all my energy and strength. My senses were not as strong as I had gotten used to in the short time I had been in the shape of a tiger, but I quickly got over the moment of adjustment. My skin looked a little whiter, like I had lost my phoenix tan completely, and I also felt bigger. It was hard to explain. I took another moment to just move around before quickly realizing that my feet were not going to let me walk back without shoes, so I started to gather all my stuff and put it in the backpack. Once I was done, I again reached for the torch in my head and pulled on it, trying to push it into my body like I had before. It took a little longer this time around, but I didn't have a super strong super fast vampire looking to make me a chew toy either, so I was good with slow. It took me lots of effort to push the heat from my head and into my chest, but once I got it there, it dispersed itself in the rest of my body rather easily. Quickly, I was back into the tiger shape I had quickly grown rather fond of. What now? I asked Sam. Now, I need to get back to my land. It's true that this is supposed to be neutral territory between the Cullens and the tribe. But the elders want me to stay within our borders since I am the first wolf warrior of this generation. Plus, I need to be there when the next person makes his first change. There are several members of the tribe that are close, and one could be only days away, so I have to be there for him. Will you tell the elders about me, even if I ask you not to? Sam sighs. Yes, I will. It is part of my duty to my tribe, and though you may be blood, you are not tribe. Sorry, Thomas. It's okay, you have been very helpful to me, and I can't fault you for doing your duty. I was just hoping to keep this from Charlie and Bella for a while. At least until I figure out what it means to me now. Nothing to worry about there, they will not find out from us. After all, you hold our secret as well. For now, know you are welcome on our lands, so feel free to come to me with any questions you have. Chapter 44, To the House. I watched Sam disappear into the forest and turned my head to bite the vampire's backpack. I added the remnants of my clothes too. Once it was secure, I started to walk to my rock but stayed off the path. I really didn't need to run into another hiker, vampire, or human. I just moved without thinking too much for now. I felt that I needed to get comfortable with my new form before I would be able to make any decisions. I really needed to do some research and see just what type of tiger I am. The look I got in the pool of water made it look like I had a mane, and so far as I knew that wasn't a tiger thing. Also, if memory served, white tigers were not truly considered albino tigers, it's just a gene mutation. Plus, I really doubt there are any natural tigers that stand over 6 feet tall at the shoulder and who knew how long I was. Food source is another issue. Will my family be safe around me? Sam said he was a protector and had no issues being around normal people, so I'm hoping I am the same. I mentally sighed, so much for not thinking too much. The rest of the walk to my rock I tried to concentrate my thoughts on the sounds and sensations this new form brought to me. I was pretty sure I could hear everything within a couple 100 yards of myself. So, anything accidentally sneaking up on me wouldn't be a likely thing. I would need to pay attention to not be seen by people, or these woods could fill up fast with hunters looking for Bigfoot or something. When I finally got to my rock, I put the bag down and flopped on the ground. Not thinking about stuff was exhausting. After a few moments, I stood up and concentrated on pulling the heat from my body again until I stood there naked and alone. I opened the backpack and found my jacket, then spread it on the ground so I could sit as I went through the backpack's contents. Pulling out any clothing first, I was rewarded with a pair of grey sweats and a couple of shirts that were too small for comfort. The sweats would get me in the house, and I could just put on my jacket to cover my chest. But this wouldn't pass a close inspection from Bella. I may have to wait for her to be occupied before making my way inside and to my room. Pretty sure I could stay in my tiger form and be close enough to pick up where she is in the house. I may even get lucky, and she left the house to get ingredients for dinner, or maybe she would go check out the library before putting dinner in the oven. I will play getting in the house by ear when it's time, I guess. Looking through the backpack more, I found a book. When I opened it, I noticed it was actually a diary or something like that. It had hand-drawn pictures of a woman that looked remarkably like Raizel. I had a panic attack for a moment there. Did I kill a friend of the Cullens? After thinking about it for a bit though, I decided that even if I did, it was justifiable. He planned to kill me, so that opened him up to being killed by me. The writing in the diary read more like an old play with all the these and thous, and it was in the third-person point of view also. Weird for something that read like a diary. I decided to look into it later and see if I could make out who this guy was. Finally, just turning the backpack upside down, I emptied it of its remaining contents. There I found several wallets with multiple IDs. None of them were from the same state and they looked nothing like each other or the vampire, so I found it just weird. Returning my attention back to the backpack, I started going through the zipper pockets and found them to be either empty or filled with cash. After counting up the money, it came out to be just under $4,000. I debated turning the whole thing over to Charlie like a responsible person should. I could tell him that I just found the backpack on the trail and let it go from there. But for reasons I couldn't explain, that just felt like a bad idea that would cause me needless issues. I opened my phone and looked at the time, then decided it was best to get to the house and see if I could get inside. Stuffing everything back in the backpack, I took a moment to shift into my tiger form, and keeping all my senses focused I moved toward home. As luck would have it, Bella did not appear to be home. The house was quiet minus some snoring coming from the area of Charlie's room, and Bella's truck was gone. I hurried up and changed out of my tiger form, and on the off chance a neighbor saw me, I quickly put on the sweats and jacket, then hurried inside and went straight to my room. Once there I shoved the backpack under my bed after retrieving all my stuff from it and grabbed some clean clothes, then made my way to the bathroom to get in a shower. I was relieved that the smells of Bella and Charlie didn't affect me. Heaven knows what I would have done if they smelled appetizing due to my new form. I would have to make myself disappear and be just another lost hiker statistic. Not wanting to think of how that would affect Bella, I stopped thinking along those lines. After going through my routine, I felt more relaxed and decided it was time to do some research. I moved to the living room and powered up the computer, then walked into the kitchen to grab a snack to keep me until dinner was ready. I knew that Bella would want dinner ready before Charlie left for work, so she would be home soon. Sitting down at the computer, I started typing in my search questions and began reading up on tigers. The first thing I learned was that I appeared to be a very large Bengal tiger, and what my reflection showed as a mane was more like very long sideburns. Supposedly they are very sensitive and help tigers realize when something is going for their neck. When I think of a mane, I think along the lines of a tiger, where it wraps around their neck and is very bushy. Looks like East Asia is the most prominent habitat for Bengal tigers, Nepal and China to be specific. Wasn't my dad from a small border town on the China/Nepal border? Looking into this brought me to some folklore of that area and something called Rakshasas. Though the information was scarce, it was a place to start looking. My musings were interrupted by the sound of Bella's big red monster getting closer and closer to the house. I closed up my search and went outside to see if she needed help bringing anything in. I walked down the steps as she was getting out of the truck and asked, "Anything to carry in?" "No, I just went to the library, it was not well stocked. Looks like any of the books I want we will have to go to a bigger town and find a bookstore to get them. I hear Port Angeles has some good bookstores." "How was your hike?" Thomas smiled. "Today's hike was mind-boggling. I saw some stuff you would never believe." Bella just smiled in a humoring me kind of way. "Well, I am glad you enjoyed it. Let's get dinner cooking, Charlie will be waking up soon." Once Bella got the 2 pans of lasagna in the oven, she turned to me, "Are you still coming with me to La Push First Beach tomorrow?" "That's the plan, I am looking forward to it. I have never seen the ocean before, so I am very interested in it. You never did tell me what Edward was talking to you about Friday at lunch. He seems to be opening up to you." Bella's eyes got a little big and panicky for a moment. "You saw that?" "Bells, everyone saw that. You have no idea the eye magnet that guy is, and you pull more attention than you realize. Besides, you know I have to look everywhere when I'm in a crowded room like the cafeteria. Not to mention the nonchalant way he caught the apple you dropped, he almost looked cool for a moment. In a mopey emo kind of way." Bella shook her head. "I was hoping that habit of yours was calming down. You seem much calmer since we came to Forks. Do you think you will ever be able to be in a room without watching the doors all the time?" "I don't know, sis, but this close to the anniversary of it happening, I doubt it." Chapter 45, Normal Family Dinner. Bella just looked at me and then softly spoke, "That also means your birthday is very soon. You know it was bigger than Christmas for Aunt Nancy. I feel like I would be letting her down if we didn't celebrate it. Even if it is the day before that happened." Thomas tried to keep his face blank and his emotions under control, yet, she was always over the top mom on that day. She never really cared for the regular holidays, seeing them as days to get in good overtime pay. But she always took a full week off work for my birthday. "Do what you want, but please let's keep it out of the public eye. I really don't want the whole school bugging me about it." Bella looked down at the kitchen floor. "About that. Lauren kinda went through your records in the school office for your birthday and has spread it among the girls." She started to speak faster as she saw Thomas's face turn cloudy. "I told her you really didn't like a big deal being made about it, and if she pushed it then you would be very unhappy. But I think she already got you a gift. She is also talking about asking you to the City Hawkins dance this next Saturday." "Yeah, I have been asked multiple times and turned them all down so far, her luck won't be any different." "What about you? Have you asked anyone to the dance?" "You know my issues with dancing. Why would I ask someone I like to go with me to a place where I would for sure make a fool out of myself? Besides, he wouldn't say yes to me anyway." She said the last bit so low that just a day ago Thomas doubted he would have heard her. "Don't be stupid, Edward would love to go with you, and I am sure he would be able to keep you from tripping over yourself." "Who said anything about Edward? Just never mind the dance. And if anyone asks, I am going to Seattle that Saturday." "Oh, that's a good excuse, I will use it too. Unless you really plan to go to Seattle then I will actually accompany you." Bella shook her head. "I really don't have to go. Besides, if Edythe asked you to the dance, then saying you have to go with me will backfire on you. And if Edward asked you? It's a girl's choice, we are supposed to ask. Do you really think that will stop guys from asking you to ask them? I bet at least 3 guys ask you between now and Monday after school. Mike and Tyler are a guarantee, and I bet there are many more. Speaking of, do you know if Angela is going to ask Ben?" Bella leaned back into the kitchen counter. "I don't know. She is very hung up on her height. She was made fun of a lot about it during middle school and more in her freshman year of high school. She likes Ben but worries that her being so much taller than him will put him off. Well, if she likes him, then she should give him the chance. Maybe we should give her some encouragement tomorrow at the beach. Bummer that Ben couldn't make it, but he works weekends. Their conversation was interrupted by Charlie as he sleepily stumbled into the kitchen. He mumbled a tired greeting as he walked directly to the coffee pot. After giving him time to take a few sips of coffee to wake up, Bella asked, "Do you want me to make you a breakfast and then you can make some lasagna to warm up at the office, or do you just want lasagna for both meals?" "You spoil me too much, kid, no reason to make anything special for me. I will have the same as you guys." Bella just nodded her head. "Well, it's about 30 minutes before it comes out of the oven and 20 after that before it will be ready." "I am going to go right, Mom, since the computer is on." As Bella left the kitchen, Thomas addressed Charlie, "Don't forget to bring out your laundry, I will get it done tonight." Charlie lifted his coffee mug in a mock salute, and I decided to make my way back to my room and look over that diary some more. After reading the first few pages, I came to the conclusion that the vampire's name was Henry Burgess. At least if I am right and the author was writing in the third-person perspective, then the name mentioned the most would be Henry Burgess. He appeared to be a vampire turned sometime in the late 1700s England. He also talked about a rash of killings he was responsible for in London during the 1800s, and that he set up a man named Aaron Kosminski to take the fall for. Apparently this Kominski was related to someone that Henry hated in his youth. Henry had to lay low when his activities drew the attention of someone called Arrow Vulturi, so he was never able to finish his plans to humiliate this grandson of his long-lost rival. To appease this Vulturi person, Henry started to send him information on all the vampires he knew in the area and anyone who passed through. As I continued to read, Henry wrote about his greatest contribution to Arrow Vulturi. Henry had discovered a rich merchant family that had a habit of always taking a trip out of town during the full moon. Henry had followed them once at a great distance and saw the family enter a well-hidden cave. Later that night, as Henry was trying to figure out how to open the cave, he heard a great deal of howling and barking sounds coming from the blocked entrance. Apparently, his passing along this information gave him a certain status of protection among vampires. No one dared to mess with him after that. My reading was interrupted by Bella calling me down for dinner. By the time I got to the kitchen, Bella was wrapping a lunch-size portion for Charlie's work meal, and then we all sat down and ate dinner together. Charlie managed to embarrass Bella by asking if she was going to ask anyone to the dance, and then he turned his attention to me and asked if I planned to go. It was a good normal family night after a very weird day of shape-shifting and learning about a whole supernatural world being out there. I was seriously struggling with the idea of keeping my family in the dark about the whole thing. I really want to tell Bella, as she had been so important to me while I recovered from my mother's death. Also, Charlie had been great, and keeping this danger from him felt like a bit of a betrayal. I just feel that I needed to learn more about this world before bringing them into it. Shortly after dinner, Charlie left for work, and I started to separate the clothes into their wash piles. Noticing a distinct lack of girly clothes, I went and knocked on Bella's door. She called out, so I opened it and took a breath to tell her to bring out the clothes she wanted washed. I quickly paused when I smelled a strong sweet smell. It wasn't overpowering or anything, but it was still very noticeable. I looked around as I stepped into the room and found the smell centering around an old rocking chair in the corner and the window. "You have anyone in here lately, Bells?" Bella looked up from her book. "I haven't ever had anyone in here but you and Charlie." "Why do you ask?" I caught a major whiff of the Cullen body lotion or perfume, whatever it is. "Did you get some sprayed on you?" I picked up the jacket that was lying on the chair. "It's really strong here." Bella just shrugged. "I don't smell it. Maybe it got on my jacket, and I just got used to it. Anyway, what's up? You still haven't brought out your clothes for me to wash. If you plan on wearing anything warm to the beach tomorrow, I need it now or you wear it dirty." "Oh crap, thanks for reminding me." Bella jumped up and started rooting around her room for dirty clothes. Once I got a load going, I returned to the vampire's diary. Now that I was used to the style of writing, it was going much faster. First off, I realized that this wasn't a day-to-day diary, just something he wrote in during significant events. I was now about 3/4 through the pages that had been written on when I came across the meticulously drawn pictures of Rosalie. Chapter 46, Conversation begins. In the drawing, Rosalie was wearing what looked like pants with very wide bottoms. I think they were called bell-bottom pants back in the day. Her shirt was a button-up with breast pockets that were tucked into her pants. The dedication to the drawing showed it was important to Henry. After looking at a few more drawn pictures with different views and clothing, I got to more writing. Henry became infatuated with Rosalie after seeing her just once. He immediately decided she would be his life mate, so he started to investigate her. I skipped over the descriptions of Rosalie's beauty, 2 full pages, and picked up again when he decided to confront her and inform her that she was now to leave her old coven and start following him. When she refused, he was furious that such a young vampire would dare ignore him even after he explained he was relied upon by Arrow. He then made the biggest mistake Henry had made since receiving a warning about his activities. The paper had named Jack the Ripper. Thomas paused there for a moment and thought this must have been what he was talking about with that person he was trying to set up. He flipped back through to read the name again. Aaron Kozminski, yeah, that was the name. I will have to look him up and see if there is anything out there on him. Getting back to where he was in the diary, Thomas read about Henry's plan to just take Rosalie and threaten her coven with his affiliation with the Vulture person. Henry had dismissed the giant vampire always around his Rosalie as a simple lackey or servant. But when Henry had reached out to take a hold of Rosalie's arm and explain her new status to her, this oaf of a servant dared to grab his arm and forced him to release her. Henry went on about trying to free himself from the younger but bigger vampire, only to discover that his strength was much greater than his own. He compared the large vampire's strength to something called a newborn. Before he could say anything further, the big oaf who I imagined to be Emmett tore his arm completely off and set it on fire. Surprisingly, Henry wrote that he would have been able to reattach the arm if it hadn't been burnt, but because it was, he would never have 2 arms again. So unsurprisingly, Henry, after escaping and healing up, decided to make his life goal of getting revenge. He learned all he could about this strange coven of gold-eyed vampires and was in the process of chasing them down to ruin them and reclaim his Rosalie. The last entry was him grumbling about how big the colonies were and the latest story he had heard about vampires living on the west coast near some place called the Olympic Mountains. After Thomas finished the last page, he got up and checked the laundry. While he did the washer-to-dryer shuffle and put another load in the washer, Thomas was thinking about what he had read and going over the little bit of conversation he had with this Henry. It definitely explained the hate he had for my size. I must have reminded him of Emmett. Again, the nonchalant way he accepted the idea of vampires surprised him. But it did explain all the weird stuff about the Cullens. There is no doubt in my mind that they aren't monsters themselves. Able to coexist with humans daily, and with how close I feel towards Alice, I just couldn't believe she could be a killer. This also eased his worries that his shifting would cause Edythe to lose interest in him, unless there is some long-standing enmity between shifters and vampires. Though thinking about that, he realized that if there were something like that, then why come to a place where shifters live? Enough of this crap. I am no good at these guessing games. I picked up my phone, you know someone named Henry Burgess, and waited for Edythe's reply. Moments later I heard my phone ping with her reply. It sounds vaguely familiar, why do you ask? I ran into him today and ended up with his diary. I think we should talk. Would you like to come over here tomorrow and talk? I think we should probably talk sooner than that, and I am going to the first beach with Bella and some friends tomorrow. Is it too late for you to come here? I will be there in a bit. Thomas put his phone down and quickly found some decent clothes to wear, not wanting to have this conversation with her in sweats and a t-shirt. Next, he went to Bella's room again and knocked, then opened the door. When Thomas got her attention, he told her, Edythe is coming over for a bit, you care if she comes inside? I don't mind, I'll just stay up here. How long is she staying? I don't know, we may hang out for a while. It's not a school night after all. Something tells me we have a lot to talk about tonight. I bet she asks you to the dance tonight. Wait, who asked who to come over? I asked her. I found something in the woods today that I think is related to her family. I am a little nervous talking to her one-on-one though. We have only ever really talked at school, with lots of distractions around us. Well, good luck. I will try to be as quiet as I can up here. Want me to finish up the laundry for you? That's okay, I can finish it. It's my turn. My hearing picked up the sound of a large motor coming down the street. It was a vehicle that I hadn't heard before, so I thought maybe it was Edythe. As loud as it sounded, I first thought it was a big truck, but that didn't sound quite right. I quickly went down the stairs and to the door. When I opened it, I watched a rather large yellow car pull into the driveway with Edythe in the driver's seat. It looked like it had a slight scoop in the hood for airflow to the engine compartment. Its long body was all yellow minus a black stripe that went along the side until after the door. At that point it went up over the roof and he assumed it connected around to the other side of the car. Beefy black tires with spoke-style rims gave the car a runner's stance look, high in the rear and squatted down in the front. It was a classic car, and if I remember it right, it was a 1974 Plymouth Roadrunner made famous by its short run as one of 3 Daisy Dukes vehicles in the Dukes of Hazzard TV show. Later episodes had her in a white Jeep, but this was the car the show went with after the 1971 Plymouth Satellite Sebring proved too expensive to maintain for the show. If she comes out wearing Daisy Duke shorts, I may just lose it right now. I stepped off the porch and walked towards the car as Edythe got out. Luckily, for my peace of mind, she did not wear short shorts. Instead, she had on a pair of blue jeans and a white button-up blouse. Tell me one of your brothers has the General Lee. Edythe smiled, so you do recognize her, no one else in town has made the connection. Well, at least no one asked me about it. Not a very practical car for this area, I bet her back end breaks loose constantly on these wet and icy roads. Rosalie and I made some modifications during the rebuild to make it better than you would think in these conditions. That truly surprised me. I could hardly wrap my head around the idea of the two beautiful women working on the car. Shaking my head I offered, "Would you like to come inside?" Edythe nodded her head and started to follow Thomas as he made his way to the door. He has gotten even bigger, it seems. She took a breath of air through her nose and was surprised to not smell much of any scent coming from Thomas at all. Weird, he never smelled particularly strong before, but now he doesn't smell at all. What's going on? She could smell Bella upstairs and Chief Swan's scent saturated the whole house, but nothing from Thomas. Yet another mystery wrapped around this guy. She wondered if her heart would be racing at the thought of entering a boy's house unsupervised for the first time if she were still human. But if I were still human, I would be 104 or dead by now. As they entered the house, Thomas asked, "Would you prefer to sit in the kitchen or the living room?" "I am comfortable with either." "Then if you will have a seat, I will grab something from my room and be right back down." Edythe just nodded and let her gaze wander around the living area. Everything was set up to revolve around the large TV that dominated the room. The walls were a rather plain-looking white, dominated by what appeared to be the yearly school pictures of Bella, which made up 90% of all room decorations. Before Edythe could learn much more, Thomas was back with a rather ornate leather-bound book in his hands. Thomas handed her the book and then took a seat in the chair nearest the couch that Edythe was sitting on. Chapter 47, Conversation continues. Edythe POV. I looked at the leather book Thomas handed me and looked at him questioningly. "I think you should do a quick scan of the book before we talk much about it. I think it will save a lot of time." I opened the leather-bound book and started reading as quickly as I could, but after the first page my mind went blank. How did he come across a book written by a vampire? Does he suspect? I started reading again, and in less than 5 minutes I turned the page to see an intricately drawn picture of Rosalie. I started to grind my teeth at the thought of this vampire leaving a book like this out to be found. I now remembered where I heard the name Henry Burgess from. That English dick that thought because he was a stooge of the Volturi, Rosalie belonged to him just because he wanted her. The shocked look on his face when Emmett tore his arm off and burned it was what she remembered the most, not his name. But damn it all, if he is here hunting us, it could be a problem. As I finished the last page, I looked up at Thomas who was watching me intently. Now comes the decision, lie or tell him the truth. The answer was easy, once the question was asked. I cannot lie to him, not for this. I took a deep breath and let it out, I am sorry Thomas. You finding this book has just made your life infinitely more complicated. There are rules about humans that learn of our existence. They must be silenced in some way or turned themselves. Is your being a vampire the reason for your distance and the staling of our possible relationship? I nodded my head, I wanted to get to know you as much as I could before it came to this. Before taking the chance of pulling you into this world. Do you have to tell someone that I know, or will it be reported somehow? Are you magical? Is that what this is? It's hard to explain but let me try. Just as I was trying to gather my thoughts and start explaining everything, there was a buzz from upstairs. Saved by the buzzer, give me a minute to start another load of laundry and I hope you don't mind but I'll be folding clothes as we talk. The thought of Thomas doing something so mundane as folding clothes as I spoke about vampires in our lives was very funny to me all of a sudden and I broke down laughing at the absurdity of it all. Thomas smiled as if reading my mind and went upstairs where I heard clothes rustling and the clanking of metal doors. I tried to gather my thoughts again and wondered how to explain it all when even I didn't know it all. When he came back downstairs, he was carrying a basket of clothes that he dumped onto the chair he had been sitting on. Go ahead, I am listening. He said as he grabbed a shirt and started to fold it. It's a little hard to know where to start, but I guess the best place is with me and my brother. We were born in Chicago on June 20, 1901, Edward Anthony Mason and Edythe Anna Mason. Our father was unsurprisingly a stonemason, and as was normal at the time, our mother Elizabeth stayed at home to care for us. It was a good normal life. We grew up happy and my biggest fear was that when Edward turned 18, he would join the services and enter the war going on at the time. Mother would always start our mealtime prayer with the wish that the wicked war would be over soon and the boys in town would come back safe so I could marry and start a family of my own. A lot of my memories of that time have faded and been forgotten, but then came the sickness. It was an epidemic of Spanish influenza, it killed my father almost immediately. The whole family was sick, and my mother was trying to stay strong to take care of me and Ed. That's where we met Dr. Cullen. I remember his cold touch standing out the most to me as I wasted away in that sickbed, it was soothing to my feverish body. His skin was so white and his eyes so gentle that in my delirium I often spoke to him thinking he was an angel just waiting for us to die so we could go with him to heaven. My mother had used up so much energy trying to care for Edward and me that she was the first to go, but before she did, I heard her begging Dr. Cullen to do what others cannot do and save her children. I fell asleep after that, not expecting to wake up. But I did wake up, I woke up to the pain of the vampire venom turning me. I won't go too much into detail, but it was not pleasant. Carlyle watched over us and taught us about what we had become. He explained our nature now that we were vampires and also how he survived on non-human blood. We knew he was always speaking the truth because we could read his mind. Knowing that he wasn't trying to trick us kept us happy with the animal blood for a long time. You see, most all vampires revel in their perceived superiority. They hunted humans so humans were lesser than them. Some get a thrill from the hunt or a buzz from proving how strong they are. Carlyle was the first anyone had heard of a vampire sustaining their life on animal blood alone. He even spent time with the Volturi, both trying to show the other a better way of living. Thomas interrupted, "Are you talking about the Arrow Volturi that Henry wrote about?" "No, the Volturi are a group of vampires," they are led by a group of 3 named Arrow, Caius, and Marcus. Think of them as the UN, they don't exactly rule as much as watch over the vampire world. If someone is doing something that could expose our existence to the human powers, then they step in and correct them. Usually with lots of fanfare and witnesses, so word spreads quickly that the righteous have punished the wicked. The number 1 rule is to keep our existence secret. Break that rule and you will get a visit from the Vulture, and it will be at their whim if you survive or not. Really? Just the 1 rule? Thomas asked as he folded the last shirt and placed it on a stack on the coffee table. Then he paused as if frozen for a moment. You were awful fast to go past the part where you and Edward can read minds. Can you read my mind all the time? His face was very red as he asked that question. I gave an exasperated sigh. No, you and Bella for some reason are completely closed off to us. I have never come across anyone my powers haven't worked on until you pair. It's very frustrating. Thomas gave a sigh of relief. Thank God, even I am not comfortable with everything I think. Would you like it if I could read all your thoughts as you have them? All of them. If vampires could blush, I would be blushing furiously. I have had more than a few fantasies about Thomas, and his question caught me flat-footed. Is he having the same thoughts about me? Anyway, back to my story. Carlisle, Edward, and I moved around a good deal as we worked on our control. Next to join us was Esme. Apparently Carlisle knew her even before me and Edward, but resisted turning her despite falling in love with her. She had been found at the bottom of a cliff and brought to the hospital where Carlisle and Edward worked. It was a miracle that Carlisle came across her when he did. Knowing that the only way to save her was to turn her, he did so, and luckily, he found out that she had always returned his feelings. The next to join us was Rosalie, and later she brought Emmett to our family. The last to join us was Jasper and Alice in 1950. Thomas had sat back down in the chair he dumped the laundry in. And these abilities? Is that how the Vulture would know if someone knew about the vampire race and wasn't turned? Well, every ability is different, much like every person is different. They have a lot to do with how we think and if they manifest as humans. Edward has always been able to sense what people thought about him. He knew when people lied to him or tried to hide things. I had the same ability but not as strong. I could, however, get people to go along with what I said rather easily. When we turned, it seemed to have enhanced our abilities tremendously. Edward can hear almost everyone in a 200-meter area around him, unable to shut it off. I have to concentrate on a person to read their mind and can't reach as far as he can. Also, I can convince people to do what I want by looking them in the eye and speaking my wishes to them. Everyone's abilities are slightly different, so it is possible that the Vulture have someone who knows when a human learns about us. But I think it's more likely that they have spies out watching and reporting like this Henry was doing. Chapter 48, Conversation ends. Thomas sat back in his chair and began to run his mind over his interactions with Alice, Jasper, and Edythe. I'm betting Jasper can calm people down. That's what happened the first time we met. He was able to calm me down when I was about to lose my temper. Alice talked about not seeing me. Does that mean she can see the future, but for some reason not me? He was mostly mumbling to himself. Thinking about the reactions the first day he saw the Cullens in the lunchroom, and later when Edythe was staring at him during their first math class together. It hurts you, doesn't it? When you try to read my mind. Edythe nodded. Yes, neither I nor Edward can read your mind, and when we try it's like reliving our worst pain. Bella just blocks us but not you. Carlisle has a theory that the vampire venom, when introduced to the human body, perfects the genes and enhances them to their peak. Not every vampire has an ability though. Rosalie just became more beautiful when she was changed. Esme had always felt the drive to have a large family and now feels a need to care for everyone like they are her children. Carlisle had great compassion for his fellow people and Emmett had great strength. I guess that last one could be considered to be a power. Thomas looked up at Edythe. Where do vampires come from? Are they a natural part of humanity or an outside force? We don't know. The oldest vampire we know of is a friend of Carlyle's from Egypt named Amun. He was turned in around 2500 BC, he isn't sure when because they didn't bother with calendars much back then. It's rumored that there was an older coven in Romania that tried to take over and rule the world. However, the Volturi destroyed them and scattered the survivors to the winds. Then they went to every large coven in the world and imposed their rules. Thomas let a breath out. Well, that touches on almost everything I wanted to know. I guess I can ask more as needed. What do you know of shifters? I am not sure that's an actual term the vampires use. According to the Volturi, our greatest enemies as a race are the children of the moon. Human history calls them werewolves, they change to mindless monsters under the full moon. They are supposed to be nearly as strong and smart as us but able to blend into the human race during the daylight. Only under the full moon do they reveal their true nature. If any vampire learns of a werewolf, we are supposed to send word to the Volturi for extermination. Failure to do so is cause for investigation. What about the Quileute wolves? I take it you do not consider them to be children of the moon. You know about them? Edythe asked. Thomas nodded his head. Wait. Edythe held up the book Thomas had given her. How did you find this? Since Edythe had been honest with him so far as he could tell, he decided to be honest as well. During my walk today, I was attacked by the vampire Henry. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? No, wait, did you get saved by the Quileute pack? Edythe asked without pause. Well, you know that I have ties to the Quileute bloodline through my grandmother, right? Edythe was shocked. I did not know that, but it makes sense now. Your high temperature, your anger, and your growth. He forced you to change, didn't he? To protect yourself. Thomas took a moment to tell her about what happened, and just as he finished, he heard the buzz of the dryer finishing the next load. Edythe sat in silence, lost in her own thoughts until Thomas came back down. As she watched him start folding clothes, she asked, "Can I see you change shape?" Thomas knew this question was coming and prepared for it as he emptied the washing machine. "I am not sure it would be a good idea with just you and me. When I changed and smelled that vampire, it angered me. It was most likely because he caused the change, but it could also have simply been because he was a vampire. I don't want to think of what could happen to you if I lost control and its instinct was to harm you. You don't realize how easy it was for me to kill him, Edythe. I was frustrated with how easy it was in that form. In my natural form, I was just as helpless as he was to me when I changed. I felt much more in control later on, but that first bit. We need a safe way to show you and an easy escape if I can't control it. Another part is that I kind of explode out of my clothes and am fully nude when I change back. It's going to be murder on my clothing allowance." Edythe laughed. "So, where does this put us? I would like to think we are a good bit closer now that we understand each other better." Edythe took a deep breath. "But you haven't asked the big question. Have I ever killed?" Thomas shook his head. "No, the big question is, have you ever taken pleasure in killing the innocent? And I don't think I have to ask you that." Edythe hesitated for a moment and then blurted out, "Will you go to the dance with me?" She paused and took a deep breath. "I mean, will you go to the dance with me next Saturday?" Thomas smiled. "I would love to go with you, Edythe." But then he realized what he just agreed to. His fear of crowds could really cause some issues at the dance. "But I don't know how to dance and I'm not great with crowds. So, I hope you won't mind if I stay on the outskirts as much as possible, at least until I am comfortable." He watched her face to see if she was disappointed in his response. "That's fine by me. It will be my first dance too, so I don't know what to expect. But I can dance, so we should meet up and teach you enough to make it through. Are you okay with that? Say tomorrow evening, when you get back from the beach." "Okay, where did you want to meet? How about I just pick you up here? You can call me when you're leaving the beach and then I can bring you to my place." You mean you are taking me to meet your family? Formally? Thomas asked with a bit of a nervous catch in his tone. Well, yet, you have already met all of them but Rosalie and my mom, Esme. I will have to tell them about Henry Burgess hunting us, so that also means telling them he attacked you and you managed to kill him. The two spent another hour just talking about random things. Thomas had a lot of questions about history and being a teen for nearly 100 years. Edythe seemed to take joy in doing things that were not a traditional female role. The law held her interest for a large part, she participated in many of the most important cases in history but from the shadows. Often through hidden communications with the lawyers who got credit for the case. She was responsible for dozens of lawyers that came out of nowhere to win major cases and after that, they would fade into mediocrity. It would have been so much easier if my compulsion power had awakened earlier. There were a couple of cases I wanted to help with but the only way would have been to be a secretary or researcher for the case. I tried that once but when I found out that as a young woman, I was expected to help the men relieve their pent-up frustrations as part of the job, I walked out and never made that mistake again. Thomas shook his head. I can't imagine the hurdles of women back in those days. No matter how smart they were often looked at as dirty secrets of the company or tools for the pleasure of the bosses. As much as I would like to believe it is not that way anymore, I think we both know it hasn't changed much. Just look at the disgusting farce that happened with the ex-president and his aide. Capital hearings on what constitutes sexual intercourse. They sat in silence for a moment when Edythe spoke. Well, we started talking about politics now, so that is our clue to stop here and come up with better topics. Let me walk you out to your car. Seriously? You think I'm in danger from walking out the door to my car? Not at all, it is simply the polite thing to do. His quick reply seemed to catch Edythe off guard, as a moment later she just nodded and stood up. Thomas followed her out and watched as she climbed into her car and started its engine. After he lost sight of her tail lights, Thomas turned and walked back inside for the night. Taking a week to rework an issue I found. See you soon. Chapter 49, First Time at the Beach and Second Meeting. Thomas POV. The next morning, I woke up much later than usual to a surprising brightness at my window. It being my off day from working out, I usually let myself sleep until I woke naturally. For the most part, I was still up before the sun, but today was a rare exception, it seemed. I wondered if I needed more sleep due to my shifting or if it was my conversation with Edythe. I got dressed and went downstairs to find Bella awake and apparently in a very good mood. Morning, Thomas. Did you see that the sun is actually out? It was so bright it woke me up, so I decided to make breakfast early. I can't wait to get to the beach today. I hope the clouds stay away until we get home. This was a rare side of Bella. She was talking in rapid-fire short sentences and couldn't keep her eyes away from the window. I had only seen her like this the first couple of days after school was out for the summer. I decided it had to be because she missed the sun so much since moving here to Forks. In no time, we were driving to the parking lot of Newton Outfitters to meet up with the group and head to First Beach. As Bella pulled in, we saw Mike standing next to his car and parked nearby was Lee in what I soon found out was his mother's minivan. After everyone gathered together, the seating separation was 4 into Mike's car, not counting him. Jessica was quick to declare shotgun. 6 plus Lee in his mother's minivan and that left one out to sit between me and Bella. Lauren was about to call dibs, when Bella asked Angela directly if she wanted to ride with us. I wasn't too sure if Bella caught the look of daggers Lauren was sending her and Angela or not, but didn't bother pointing it out either. Mike assured Bella he wouldn't go too fast so her truck could keep up. Bella in turn thanked him but told him not to waste time and get to the beach so everyone could soak in as much sun as possible. Not like she would get lost driving a few miles on her own. I was sure I saw some happy looks from his passengers, especially Jessica. We took the risk of rolling down the ancient windows in the truck and enjoyed the slow drive on a sunny day. About the time La Push Road turned into Ocean Drive, I caught the first glimpse of the sea. and it was more than I expected. The salt in the air made my nose wrinkle at first, but I soon got used to it and actually started to enjoy the smell. I had tuned Bella and Angela out when they started to discuss the pros and cons of the boys in school. I knew bringing up Ben would be a bad idea just yet, so I just took in the surroundings. As we got closer, I could make out the crescent shape of the beach. The water was a dark gray and went on as far as I could see. The terrain was very rocky, with more than a few cliffs. It looked impressive. When Bella pulled up next to Lee's minivan, I got out and started to look around like a tourist. The group was on the beach, someone had even managed to bring a surfboard. Jessica was walking back from a small building in a wetsuit. I wasn't surprised it was her that wanted to go surfing, she was a very sport-oriented girl and very competitive to boot. As we walked up, I heard Mike talking about people going to collect firewood so they could build a big bonfire to hold off the chill. I volunteered for that, as I wanted to explore anyway. Lauren quickly offered to join me to point out what wood was usable and what wasn't, because everyone knew I had never been to the beach before. I would have been more enthusiastic if she hadn't spoken in such an insulting tone, but I still didn't stop her from going with me. After walking for a while, Lauren pointed and spoke, "We could look over there, no one from the group can see us. So, we could wait there and do whatever, until the others find enough wood for the fire. That way we could enjoy ourselves and not have to work at picking up wood. Unless you want to show me some anyway. This girl is about as subtle as Bella's truck." I had zero interest in any alone time with this teen pregnancy, just looking for a person to land on. Time to play dumb. I doubt there would be much wood in that area, let's look over here. If we collect too much, we can just leave it for the next people. I am sure it's better to get the wood above the shoreline to dry out anyway. Then I intentionally dragged her through the roughest patch of rocky terrain I could so she couldn't walk next to me too often. She kept accidentally bumping her hand into mine as we walked. Soon I didn't have to worry about it as my arms were full of firewood. Lauren was even carrying a piece in one of her hands as we headed back to the group. When we got to where the fire pit was, I placed my arm full off to the side and separated out the dry and wet wood. I figured if we left the wet wood close to the fire it would get dry enough to be used if we were there long enough to need it. After I finished, I moved next to Bella, who was sitting on a large bit of driftwood that looked like it had been placed here on purpose for seating, just close enough to the fire to be comfortable but not burnt. Mike was telling Bella about the salt in the wood making the flames of the campfire different colors. So far as I could remember, this was the first time Bella had actually seen a campfire in person, so the subtlety was probably lost on her. It didn't take much effort to tune them out. I sat there and just looked at the sky and the ocean, taking it all in. The pelicans floating on the short waves, with the seagulls and an eagle floating overhead. After a few minutes of inane chatter from the group, I was feeling restless, so I stood up and walked to the edge of the water and just focused my eyes and thoughts forward. Looking at just how big the ocean actually was and letting the crashing waves block the voices from the group. After a while, I had turned my gaze on a small island that was just north of where I was and thought to myself, it would be easy to swim to it and look around one day if I wanted to. Not much time after that thought, I as much felt, as heard someone walking up beside me. The lack of overwhelming perfume stench told me it wasn't Lauren. That alone made me smile a bit, her voice was starting to grate on me. We called that island a kalat, in the old language. It means top of the rock. The short laugh that followed had a tinge of ridicule in it. I turned to look at who had spoken, and my eyes widened. She stood about 5 feet 10 and had long sleek black hair and the most perfect copper skin tone. Her almond-shaped eyes were a soft mix of brown with specks of grey, framed by eyelashes the girls in Phoenix paid to get glued on. I recognized her from the day on the cliffs in the forest. Though at that time I didn't get close enough to take note of her beauty. Well, it's descriptive at least. What do you call it now? She pulled her face into a sneer, James Island. And that small one next to it is called Little James Island on American maps. Think I prefer a Kalat. A Kalat. She corrected. My name is Thomas, I said as I offered my hand to her. She shook my hand with no hesitation, her grip firmer than I expected. I'm Leah. Leah Clearwater. The name was familiar. Clearwater? As in Harry Clearwater. You know my father? Well, know of at least. I know he makes the best fish fry batter I have ever tasted. He gave some to my uncle and it was great. Thank him for me if you think of it. I will. So, why are you standing out here instead of sitting with the group? Well, I don't much like crowds. They make me uncomfortable. So, I wanted to get closer to the ocean, it makes me feel small. Or like there is more room around me, I guess. It just feels peaceful. I was having trouble explaining the way it felt to myself, much less to someone else. I glanced over my shoulder at the group I came with and saw a smaller group walking up to them. This group had some familiar faces in it, Jacob, Sam and a couple of other boys I didn't know. Fuck, I can't even escape him here. I can't wait to leave this shithole town and its shit people. Nice meeting you again, Thomas. Sorry I was a bitch last time we met. Bye. Leah walked away quickly, her back ramrod straight and making an obvious effort to not look at the incoming group of Quiloots. I returned my eyes to the small island, thinking about Leah. I had a pretty good idea she was Sam's ex, it would explain the anger that radiated off her like heat. A few moments later I heard the heavy tread that was easily recognized as Sam. Hey Thomas! Hey Sam! How's it going? Jared shifted last night, so I am no longer a pack of one. It was a bit weird though. I heard and saw him as soon as we were both wolves. Talking wasn't nearly as hard as it is with you. I just nodded at what he said, still looking at the small island. The village used to be on that island. It was out far enough for protection and still close enough to make hunting possible. Now it is a place we spread the ashes of our chiefs and elders. We consider it a place of great spiritual power to this day. I nodded my head, a Kalat, according to Leah. Sam sighed sadly, yeah, I saw her over here. She is still angry, and I can't blame her. We both lapsed into silence and just looked out over the ocean. This beach trip is the reason I had to take a week to rewrite this chapter and a significant portion of what comes after. I initially had a fight happen between Paula Oat and Thomas that was instigated by Lauren. This would create a break between Thomas and the tribe. I didn't like the corner this put me in, so I decided to just have a slight separation between Thomas and the tribe instead of a total breakdown for now. Hope you understand and enjoy the new, to me, route taken. Chapter 50, Cracks. I know, I'm running late. Put the pitchforks down. Work is kicking me around at the worst possible time. Enjoy today's release. Sam and I stood in silence for a good 5 minutes, each lost in our own thoughts. Sam spoke, breaking the silence. The council is still deliberating on your situation. They were shocked that you are not a wolf warrior but a Bengal tiger instead. Something like this has never been known or even thought possible. I sighed at the tone of his voice. How many want to brand me a danger? Or am I to be labeled as a mutation of the true blood? How did you? Did someone tell you? I looked at Sam. No, it was a guess from the caution in your tone. Old people like things that are the same, new is not comfortable to them. Only the known is safe. If they don't know me, there is a large chance they will fear me. No one thinks of you as a danger to the tribe. But, well, you are right that they are cautious. There are also the rumors that you are close with the Cullens. Some elders find it strange that one of our blood can stand to be so near them. Even in this form their smell is unpleasant to me. I looked at Sam a little closer. He was acting a bit different. His friendly face from before was looking a bit forced. Like he was trying to be open and friendly instead of being that way naturally. You are acting weird, Sam. I know I haven't known you very long, but you seem off today. What's up? Sam looked away from my searching gaze, back out to the ocean. I feel the settling of responsibility lately, Thomas. I am now a pack leader with Emily and my tribe to protect. I will not shrink away from my responsibilities as my father did. I will protect those that rely on me. Right now, the Cullens are the closest danger to the tribe, and you are close with them from what I hear. I must know where you would stand if it came to a fight between the two groups. With little thought I answered him, I would stand on the wronged party's side, if I even took a side at all. The Cullens have been here for over 2 years, from what I understand, and have done nothing to break the treaty. Why the sudden concern with them? When you have no chance of fighting back, it's best to endure. But now the tribe has me and Jared. If they try an attack, then we need to be ready. I need to know that I can count on you as well. I think you are wasting time on a non-existent problem. Definitely protect your borders from any trespass, but don't go looking for trouble. Your only danger would be from wandering vampires. From the little bit that Edythe has told me, covens of the size the Cullens have are unnatural for their kind. Vampires that hunt humans tend to stick out, and sticking out in large groups is a bad thing for them. I can act as a bridge between the Cullens and the tribe. With their permission, I can tell you about the vampires' habits and practices. Sam took in a deep breath. You think they would do that? Betray their own kind? I don't know. But I don't think they have much love for the vampires that feed on humans. I definitely believe they wouldn't stop us from defending ourselves. I plan to meet with them later today. I can bring up the idea then and see from there. A part of me hates them. The Cullens. But I also realize that the part that does is only there because they are here. This change in me has brought personal strength and a love I cannot express with words alone. But that gain has come at a loss as well. Leah deserves better than what I am doing to her, but I cannot deny my feelings for Emily. Sam just sighed. I decided to change the subject. What does Jared think of his new shape so far? Sam smiled. He loves the freedom of the wolf shape. He seems to want to spend more time in it than in his human form. If he wasn't worried about his mother missing him, he would stay that way as long as he could. I am sure a big part of that is because he didn't wake alone. I am still not sure how I kept from panicking when I realized I had changed shape. Though I do agree that the new form gives a sense of strength and freedom I didn't know existed. I have a meeting with the Cullens tonight, if you would like me to talk to them. I could offer an olive branch from the tribe. No, I would need to speak with the elders before anything like that can take place. I think for now, we will rely on the treaty and build our strength. More will awaken soon, I can feel it. Sam turned his gaze to the 3 teens he arrived with. I could see Jacob and Bella returning from their walk along the beach. Bella looked a bit cold the way she was rubbing her arms. I am going to head back to the fire. Something tells me these calm days won't last long. The rest of the afternoon was spent in normal teenage fashion. Lauren turned her attention to a boy Sam had brought with him, named Paul. He was loud and a bit obnoxious, so they got along well. Jessica managed to get her surfboard on the water, but there just weren't really any waves above 3 feet. It looked nothing like the surfing competitions and movies I had seen, but as that was the extent of my knowledge about surfing, I couldn't say anything. Eventually, as always happens in this area, the weather turned from sunny and cold to cloudy and cold. Leaving the Quilutes to tend the waning fire, us city kids packed up and headed for home. By mass agreement, the driver would take everyone in their vehicle home instead of everyone going to the parking lot where we met and making their way from there. The drive back with Angela was where Bella and I started suggesting to her that she ask Ben to the dance. We were both rather shameless in pointing out how obvious their attraction to each other was to those who looked. Angela put us off with a "I'll think about it" answer, and we knew better than to push. Well, okay, Bella signaled to me that my pushing wasn't helping, so I turned my attention to the window as she and Angela talked about girl stuff. I was looking forward to my time with Edythe later this evening, and once we dropped Angela off, I texted Edythe and told her I would be home as soon. I figured I would have time to shower and change clothes, but I guess I wasn't the only one excited to meet. As soon as Bella pulled into her parking spot and turned her truck off, the sound of Edythe's Roadrunner reached our ears. Watching the yellow classic car pull into the driveway, it was hard not to just stare at Edythe in the driver's seat. A sort of peace settled over me looking at her. The usual tightness that kept my muscles stiff, finally relaxed a little. A smile on my face, I walked over and opened her door for her, holding out my hand to help her out of the car. It was a useless gesture, but it still felt right. The idea that she would stumble or need any help to stand was laughable, but it was still the polite thing to do in my opinion. "Hey sunshine! How was your day?" Edythe took my hand after a short pause. "It's better now." "How was the beach?" "It was very eye-opening. The vastness was humbling, to be honest. I would have liked to share the moment with you, but I feel that way about everything new lately. I am sure that anyone watching would say I was laying it on a bit thick and cringe, but this being a totally new experience for me, I didn't know how to hold back. I didn't want to hold back my thoughts. I wanted to be as free with her as I could be. No worries that she found my words corny or holding back just in case she didn't return my feelings. I decided to be true to myself and hoped that she would do the same. When Edythe stood from the driver's seat, she let go of my hand and leaned her head into my chest. Then she wrapped her arms around me in a hug that got slowly tighter. "I can smell the salt air on you. Also, a bit of girl's perfume. Usually you don't have a scent, it's like smells fall off you after a time." "That's probably Angela, she rode in the truck with me and Bella. We are trying to get her to see that she and Ben are perfect for each other." Bella gave a greeting to Edythe as she walked to the door. "Hi Edythe, are you guys coming in?" Chapter 51, A Concerned Sister. Edythe pulled her head back from my chest to look up at me. "Are we?" I smiled. "Yes, at the very least I need a shower and change of clothes if I am meeting your parents." Looking down at Edythe as she looked up at me was a sight that made my heart race. Her pale face with her plump lips slightly pressed together and her butterscotch eyes looking at me questioningly. It was a sight I stored away in my brain right next to the mental picture of her in math class. Edythe smiled and placed her ear over my heart. "My, what has your heart racing, dear?" My face went red, but I plucked up my courage. "That would be you, sunshine. Only you can make it race that way." To make my point, I leaned down and placed a kiss on the crown of her head. I really wanted to take her chin and lift her face up so I could kiss her lips, but my courage only took me so far this time. Her whole body seemed to turn to stone, and I worried that I had done something wrong. But after a moment she seemed to come back to life, and keeping one arm around my waist, she turned toward the front door of the house. We walked together until we reached the steps, and I nudged her to go first. Once we stepped inside, I closed the door. Bella called from the kitchen, "I will keep Edythe company while you get ready, Thomas, if she is okay with it, that is." When she finished talking, Bella was standing in the kitchen entryway. I looked at Edythe. "I will try and be quick." Edythe POV. I watched Thomas disappear up the stairs to his room and spent a moment wishing I was going up there so I could see his room. See what his space looked like. Would it be clean and organized? Or would it be messy and have his often used things just scattered around? My thoughts were interrupted by Bella, who was still standing in the kitchen doorway. "Can I get you something to drink? I would love a glass of water, if that's okay." When she turned to head to the sink, I followed her into the kitchen. Being mindful that normal people were more relaxed when sitting, I pulled a chair from the kitchen table and sat down. Looking around, I could see that though it was small, the kitchen was well cared for. The cupboards looked like they had been painted by someone with questionable taste years ago. These colors belonged in a warmer climate. The lack of light in the kitchen made them seem muted and out of place. When Bella placed the glass of water in front of me, she took the chair closest to me and noticed I was looking around. They were painted when my mom and dad were newlyweds. She loved vibrant colors, and they were at that point where Charlie did anything she wanted. I don't think he even changed the curtains in here after she left. I don't think he changed anything in the beginning because he hoped we would come back eventually. Then after the divorce was final, he just avoided coming in here and ate out. He is a very stubborn man, my father. I smiled. Is that where you get it from, you think? Bella blushed a bit. What makes you think I am stubborn? Thomas told me that he would have better luck convincing a bear to hibernate in the summer than get you to change your mind once you're set on something. Or someone. I said the last with a bit of a point. Her blush took on a deeper shade. I don't know what you're talking about. A silence fell and the sound of the shower running upstairs intruded on my mind. How I would love to be up there with him. I was again drawn out of my thoughts by Bella. Are you serious about him? Thomas, I mean. I took a deep breath. Damn, this girl smells good. How can Edward handle it smelling so much more to him? Getting my mind back on track, I am Bella. He is so much more than anyone I have ever met. The little bit that I know tells me that there is so much more to learn. I also think he feels the same way about me. I can see he is more natural when talking to me. Unlike the forced way he acts towards some of the girls in your group. Bella nodded her head. Yet, you and Alice are the only girls he has ever spoken to me about with any emotion. Jessica and Lauren don't even register in his mind other than the fact that they are around him sometimes. I am pretty sure they have already asked him to the dance, after I refused to help them ask anyway. Are you not going to ask anyone to the dance? I am pretty sure no one I know would turn you down. Bella looked down at her hands. No, I don't dance. Besides, I gave so many excuses it would look bad if I changed my mind now. I would just make a fool out of myself anyway. The room lapsed into silence for a few moments until Bella spoke again. I wasn't trying to be nosy or interfering with you and Thomas, it's just. Well, Thomas has a lot of hurt in him, and the next few weeks are going to be rough for him. He had his mother taken from him a few years ago and the anniversary for that is coming up soon. It's not made any better that it's the day after his birthday either. It really isn't my place to get into more detail, I just want you to know. He seems to really like you, and I don't want his erratic emotions over the next few weeks to mess that up for him. He deserves to be happy, and hopefully you can help lessen that pain for him. Listen to me ramble on. I am sorry. All I hear is a sister worried for her brother. I think I am understanding you a bit more, Bella, and I hope we can be friends. You are a genuinely good person, and you would be surprised how few of those there are out there. The two girls then just sat and talked about little things like school and clothes. Edythe asked more about Bella's mom. She could easily tell by the way Bella talked about Renee, that the parenting roles had been messed up from a young age. Renee had been lucky that Bella didn't resent her for that. Not many kids could handle it as well as Bella apparently had. Before their silent pauses could turn into awkward silences, Thomas came down the stairs. He was wearing dark blue jeans with a tucked-in white V-neck t-shirt with a white button-up that was open and untucked. A pair of grey Vans completed his look. His slightly damp hair and flushed skin drove all of my thoughts to a halt. The simple boyish smile on his face told me that he noticed my pause and it amused him that he could do that to me the way I did to him on occasion. I was glad yet again that I couldn't blush and make things worse for myself. Are you ready then? I asked. Thomas looked over at Bella. I don't plan to be out too late, don't want to push Charlie too far on a school night. So, no later than 10:30. His last comment was more of a question towards me than anything. That won't be a problem. I can have you back by then easily. Before I left the kitchen I paused and turned to Bella. Do you mind if I get your phone number? We could hang out and talk more if you want. Looking baffled that I would ask, Bella nodded her head and gave me her number. I called it until her phone rang and then ended the call and pocketed mine. Now you have mine too, if you have questions about anything. It was great talking to you, Bella. I look forward to it more in the future. Thomas followed me out the door and made his way to the passenger door. We both opened the door at the same time and sat down. I started the vehicle and placed my hand on the shifter that was next to my knee. I noticed Thomas taking in the interior of the car and was happy with his pleased expression. About the time I pushed the thumb button and slid the gear back on into reverse, the burned CD I had in the new age stereo kicked in. House of Pain by Faster Pussycat started coming out of the speakers at a moderate volume. It hit me then and there that I had no idea what music he liked to listen to. We can change the CD if you would like. I don't know what music you like though. Thomas smiled and shook his head. Don't laugh too much, but I love these old power ballads. Today's music is okay, but the older stuff feels more genuine, you know what I mean? The 70s and 80s with their big hair and showmanship were way better than today's singers who are only good on CD or MTV/Bet. I don't know much about the industry, but back in the day I understand the money was made off live shows. Now it's a CD popularity contest and how good your video looks. The next song was I'm Alright from the Caddyshack movie by Kenny Loggins, and I was astounded when Thomas started singing along. When he saw my amused look, he defended himself. This was one of my mom's favorites. I grew up watching that movie with her. I took the long way home so I could see more of his reactions to the mixed CD, but even though I didn't drive as fast as I could like Edward does, it was eventually time to turn down the drive to home. Chapter 52, The Cullen House. Thomas POV. Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue was cut off halfway through as Edythe pulled up next to Edward's Volvo and shut the engine off. My nerves were all over the place and I suddenly missed the comfort of the familiar music. It's true that I like listening to classic and slow music to calm down. But for pure entertainment it was definitely the 70s and 80s music. I was happy it seemed Edythe shared my taste. I was very interested to see what else we had in common, but right now it was the nerves of officially meeting the family that had me occupied. I took a deep breath and let it out before finally reaching for the door handle. When I finally opened the door and got out, I noticed that Edythe was there waiting for me. I thought for a minute I would have to bring everyone out here to meet you. She joked with me. Give me a break, this is the first time I have gone to meet my girlfriend's parents. So, I'm your girlfriend. I felt like I just stepped on a landmine for some reason. It only took a moment of thought before I realized why. Well, I never asked you and made it official, but would you like to be my girlfriend? I don't want your family to think I am taking advantage of you and don't take this seriously. Edythe stepped into me again and threw her arms around me. This time the hug had my ribs creaking in alarm, but I just wrapped my own arms around her and held her. She felt small and cold in my embrace, but it was not uncomfortable. After a few moments like that, she let me go and I took a moment to look around the outside of the house she brought me to. My very first thought was I would not want to clean that many windows. It was a 3-story house built into a hill. The first and third story was a slate gray exterior that made it look strong and part of the hill it was built into. The second floor was lined in wood though. It stood out in its golden oak color and made it look very grand. It must have cost a fortune to design, much less build. There was a hanging deck on the second floor that looked like it should fall off under its own weight, but it seemed as strong as the rest of the house. Despite the windows making a majority of the exterior, it still looked strong. I loved it. This is amazing. Such beauty and strength. My mother designed it. She is a well-renowned architect. As we began to walk to the front door I asked, do they know that I'm in on the vampire secret? Yes, I showed them the diary that Henry kept. We are amazed that any vampire would be dumb enough to keep a written record like that. It's just stupid in so many ways. I also told them about your shape change ability. I am hoping you will show us here where we are safe, and you don't have to worry about hurting anyone. It's better to do it in a safe environment, instead of in a dangerous situation out of our control. I wasn't happy with the thought of changing here and potentially hurting one of my friends, but she had a point. It's better to find out if I can control it here, than it would be in an emergency situation elsewhere. We can talk about it with everyone, but if I have a choice, I want Jasper to be the first to approach me. He is the best fighter I have ever seen. Edythe nodded as we reached the door, then she stopped and looked at me. Another thing, this is where we are the most comfortable. We don't hide our traits or try to act human here, so it may be a bit strange to you. I just nodded in reply and followed her inside when she opened the door. Despite the cold temperature outside, I didn't have a jacket, so I just walked past the coat rack and looked around. It was warm. That's the feeling I got. The decorations were few and spread out, but it was just short of being sparse. Everything on the walls had a symmetry that fit perfectly together to create a lived-in atmosphere. Old and new meshed together perfectly. Edythe walked to my side and took my left hand in hers as I gawked like a tourist in the state capital. Stepping up some stairs to the second floor, I was met by a group of 5 people. I recognized all but one of them. Edward stood next to Emmett and Rosalie, and Dr. Cullen stood next to a woman I assumed was Esme. She was the one resident vampire I had yet to meet. She was just as beautiful as the rest of her family, but where so many of them looked sharp in their appearance, Esme was soft and rounded a bit. She just looked friendly and approachable, someone you would want to protect in any situation. She stood 5 feet 6 in with a caramel-colored head of long curly hair. Her eyes were a darker color than gold, but not yet black enough to indicate that she needed to feed. Her eyes locked on mine and Edythe's hands, and a brilliant smile broke out on her face. I stepped forward and offered my free right hand to Dr. Cullen. "Mr. Cullen, my name is Thomas Raizel. It is good to meet you," formally. Carlyle took my hand and shook it firmly. "It's good to meet you as well, Thomas. This is my wife Esme, and I'm sure you know your schoolmates beside us." "Yes, sir, though I have yet to speak with the lovely Rosalie. Edward and Emmett share Spanish class with me." Then out of nowhere, an exterior door slid open, and a gust of wind blew a small figure into the room. She was moving fast, but my eyes were able to follow Alice as she rammed into me in excitement. I had to pull my left hand free from Edythe to catch Alice and spin her around to kill some of the momentum she hit me with. I laughed. "There's the little fairy of the house. Keep pulling stunts like this and I'll rename you Gremlin. Where is your man? I don't want him to think I'm trying to steal his girl and his sister. I don't think I'd survive his wrath." Jasper walked through the open door and closed it behind him. "Howdy, Thomas. Welcome to the house." I shot him a smile as I put Alice back on the floor. "It's good to be here, thank you all for your welcome." I wasn't aware of the danger standing next to me until I heard a hiss from the lips of Edythe. I looked to see her giving a very unfriendly look to Alice. "You made him let my hand go, you little brownie." Alice immediately looked apologetic. "I'm sorry, Edythe, I was just so happy to see him in our house. Please forgive me." I was quick to retake Edythe's hand in the hope it would settle her down. Surprisingly, it worked rather well. Alice just stuck her tongue out at Edythe and gave her a smile and a shrug. Everyone laughed at their interaction. Edward shook his head and muttered something about playing with fire. Esme stepped forward and asked, "Have you eaten yet this evening, Thomas?" My heart sank. I did not, but no worries. I can eat when I return home. I know you don't consume food here. You don't have to worry about us, Thomas. We are meticulous about making sure the house has food stocked. Anything unused gets taken to a women's shelter in Port Angeles long before it goes bad. We can't have the town thinking we don't feed a family this large." Esme was interrupted by Edythe. "Actually, Mom, I was hoping to cook the backstrap from the elk I took last night. I have a family recipe I would like to cook for him. Though I bet it would go great with some garlic mashed potatoes if you wouldn't mind helping me." I was taken aback at the idea that Edythe had planned this out so much. I was a bit embarrassed by it all. As Edythe and Esme started talking, Carlyle spoke to me. would you like to join me in the living room, Thomas? Yes, sir. I brought Edythe's hand to my lips and kissed it. I can't wait to try your cooking. I will go keep your dad company. Moving to the living room wasn't much more than taking a few steps to an area that had a couch and some chairs. The whole house was an open concept, and you could see all the way to the kitchen from most anywhere. Emmett and Rosalie went upstairs, but the rest of the family followed. Carlisle and Alice and Jasper took a love seat and Edward took a chair by himself. I took another solo chair and Carlisle sat on the couch facing me. Looking me in the eye, Carlisle spoke, "You seem to be taking this new reality of the supernatural world in stride. Are there any questions I could answer for you?" Chapter 53, Cullen Q&A. Edythe POV. When Thomas kissed my hand, I thought it would catch fire. It was a moment before I was able to gather myself enough to follow Mom to the kitchen. Once we were there and the others settled in the living room, Esme turned to me and let out a small squeal of happiness. "I can't tell you how happy I am for you, dear. You look so complete next to him. Now I just need to hope Edward works his issue out." I smiled in happiness at my mother's antics. She was truly devoted to those around her, never hesitating to do anything for us, even at her own expense. We were so lucky to have her. I asked a question that had been bugging me this evening. "Mom, how do I stop freezing up every time he kisses me?" He kissed my head while we were hugging, and I nearly crushed him in reflex. Then again just now, when he kissed my hand. I lost all ability to think for a few moments. "Do you ever get over that feeling?" Esme gave a throaty laugh. "I certainly hope not, my dear. Carlisle can still make the world stop when he kisses me just right. Just wait until he gives you a kiss that makes you melt where you stand. Any description pales in comparison to the actuality of it. I feel like I could burst in happiness right now, my dear daughter." Esme couldn't contain herself and hugged me once again. "Okay, what's this recipe you want to cook for him and how can I help?" I was a little hesitant to say but pushed through it. My mother Elizabeth had a recipe for breaded elk backstrap that she first cooked for my father Edward. She hoped it would be the first meal I made for my husband when I was still mortal. "That's perfect, my dear one. Let's honor your mother and conquer your man by his stomach. You get started on that, and I will look up a video on garlic mashed potatoes. First though, let's see if that's a good combination." She quickly went to the nearby computer and started to type. Moments later she came back with a written recipe. "I got a good recipe from someone named Gordon Ramsay online. It has great reviews to pair with elk." I just smiled in happiness as we started to cook for my boyfriend. Thomas POV. "Well, Mr. Cullen, have you ever heard of something like me?" Edythe spoke a little about the first meeting with the Quileute wolf pack and she also told me about the enmity between the more classic werewolf and vampire. "Just call me Carlisle, Thomas. I can't say that I have heard anything about a tiger shape changer. You told me about being connected to the Quileute tribe through your great-grandmother, but what do you know about your great-grandfather?" I took a deep breath and thought about the few stories my mom told me when I was young. According to my mom, my dad's family came from the Nepal and China border. They were some kind of group she called Jivas. Though that could also be the name of a village, I really don't remember much from the stories she told me. She always said she would tell me more when I was older. My voice fell there. With my memory it was a simple fact that I had just not been listening to her at the time. I thought she would always be there to tell me again when I needed to know. Trying not to dwell, I continued my original thought. My father died just before I was born, so I never got to meet him, but Mom always talked about him and his family like I would go there one day. But I honestly don't know if they even know about me. I have never heard from them anyway." Carlisle gave a sigh of sadness. "It's a place to start at least. That's more than some get. So many of our kind are left with no idea of what happened to them or who they are. It's sad." Edward spoke for the first time since we sat down. "Carlisle, have you ever met a vampire from the Asia continent? From Russia I have, they call themselves Upper. But come to think of it, I have never met one from China or India. How peculiar. The two turned to Jasper. What about you, son? Carlyle asked him. To my knowledge, no. Leastways, not one from that continent. There was a gang that was started from the railway workers at one time that had a significant number of Chinese, but Maria had us kill them to a man. Carlyle frowned in thought. Well, it's a place to start, like I said. I can put out a few feelers through some old friends. Edward brought up the next subject. Edythe said you were worried you may hurt someone while shifted in your new form. Is there a reason for that? I collected my thoughts for a moment and tried to answer as completely as I could. When the vampire Henry forced the change on me, I felt like I had very little control at first. When he ran from me, it was not a conscious choice to go after him but more of an instinct that I couldn't suppress. Before I knew it, I was on him and tearing chunks out of him with no effort. I let that sink into my audience for a moment before continuing. After I had killed him, I was able to exert control and experiment with my form. It was a little tricky moving if I was trying to direct my limbs, but once I got used to it, it just felt second nature. It is very possible that the reason I killed Henry was because he was attacking me, but I also felt anger towards him before changing because of his smell. Edythe interrupted the conversation by bringing me a glass of water. Your food will be ready in about 30 minutes. I brought this because I know you don't usually talk this much. Her thoughtfulness gave me butterflies. I gave her my best smile and thanked her. I returned my attention to Carlyle after taking a drink. I am not aware if you know this, but to me you all give off a sweet sugary smell. It is not unpleasant to me the way it is to the tribe, but still very apparent. Henry, however, had a burnt sugar smell to me, and it made my hair stand up and ignited my anger. I didn't think too much on it at first and just moved out of his way, because I'm used to being angry. But he told me that I in turn smelled off to him. He said I smelled like I was going bad. When Edythe and I spoke about it, we came to the conclusion that because you all don't consume human blood regularly that you have little ability to separate the flavors of human blood, if you take my meaning. Edythe also wondered if my change was bringing my blood closer to your feeding tastes, and that could have been a part of her initial draw towards me. But now she says I don't have a smell my own, but I take on the smell of my surroundings rather easily. It makes me wonder if by being around Edythe for a significant amount of time, other vampires would mistake my smell as a vampire. I paused for a moment, but I am rambling away from your question. I need to see if the presence of a vampire makes my body go into instinctual fight mode, or if it was because Henry was attacking me from the beginning. It could also be that the burnt smell triggered me to react that way. I just really don't want to put anyone in danger to find out. But Edythe pointed out that it's better to do this in a controlled environment, than take a chance it happens somewhere with no control. I would never forgive myself if I put a loved one in danger from myself by trying to protect them from something else. Do you understand? Carlyle smiled at me with a gentle smile and nodded. I think we are uniquely able to understand your feelings, Thomas. We all have struggled with our own natures in an effort to not hurt innocent lives. Jasper leaned forward in his seat. I think I would be the best option to test your reaction on Thomas. If Edward or Edythe could read your mind, they would have been the best bet, but I am better able to react to pure physical danger. My abilities also work on you, so I may be able to calm you down if needed. After all, I wouldn't be looking to fight you, just stay away from you to stop from getting hurt. I gave him a smile. That was my thought as well. Sorry to be the one to put you in danger, but you bounce me around the woods with ease, so if I manage to get in a swipe or two, I wouldn't feel too bad. Well, I would. Don't you dare try to hurt my Jazz. Alice broke in. I laughed at the mock ferocity Alice was showing me. I have done a lot of thinking on this, Alice. After my initial change and killing of Henry, I was able to control myself in the presence of Sam in his wolf and human shape. I am about 80% sure that Jasper will be safe. As a group we discussed how to best test this, and it mostly came down to me going out into the woods and making the change, then approaching the house slowly. I should be able to tell just by the smell if I was still in control of myself. Once I got close enough for them to see me, then Jasper would step out and gauge my reactions. Chapter 54, Main Event of the Night. Once the decision was made, there was no further discussion about it for now. I was sure we would go over it again just before we were ready for the trial. The rest of the conversation revolved around how I was acclimating to Forks and the smaller school. Jasper revealed that my anger wasn't as obvious to him any longer. The smells coming from the kitchen were hard to ignore, also the idea that Edythe and Esme were going through so much trouble just for me was hard to accept. Possibly understanding a bit of my discomfort, Carlisle commented, "I should thank you for giving us a chance to use the kitchen here for the first time, for its intended purpose anyway. You need not worry about a room full of vampires watching you eat. I am sure we will all leave you and Edythe in peace and go about our night until you are ready to test your shifting ability. Though at some point tonight I would like to have a conversation about your intentions with my daughter, I will also need to explain a few things about our unique mentality." A quick shout came from the kitchen, proving that even while cooking Edythe was still listening in. "You stop that right now, Dad. Thomas and I are working it out ourselves." Carlisle didn't even turn his head. "Sorry my dear, this is a father thing. It will happen." I gave a nervous sigh. "Yes sir." Esme was in the process of placing a plate and utensils on the dining room table. "Don't go intimidating the poor boy, Carlisle." She caught my eye. "Vampires have a hard time with emotions, dear. Sometimes they overwhelm us when they change." Well, in truth, vampires seldom change after they are created, so even a small change can have drastic effects. I let that cryptic statement settle in my mind, and before I could ask any follow-up questions, Edythe broke in. "Your food is ready, Thomas." She was carrying a long platter of meat in one hand and a bowl of what looked like mashed potatoes in the other. My first thought was that her carrying them in her hands had to be hot, but then I remembered that she wasn't so easily hurt. "It smells wonderful," I said as I stood and made my way to the table. In moments, Edythe and I were alone in the dining room. She sat across from me and was watching me intently as I began to eat. The first bite was an explosion of flavors that I had never tasted before. The elk was a lean meat with a slightly sweet taste to it, and adding the earthy taste of mashed potatoes to it was beyond complimentary. I have obviously had mashed potatoes before, but these had a hint of garlic and a much more creamy texture than I was used to. I could see the unasked question in Edythe's eyes, and once I finished my first mouthful, I told her in detail how wonderful I thought it tasted. Seeing a flash of relief on her face and the following smile made the meal all that much better. I concentrated on finishing the plate, and asking for more made her obviously happy. By the time I was done, the roast that looked to have weighed about 4.5 pounds was gone and there were no more potatoes left in the bowl. I leaned back in my chair with a full belly. "That was by far one of the most delicious meals I have ever had, Edythe. I can't compliment you and your mother enough." I stood up and started to gather my plate as Edythe grabbed the bowl and meat platter. We then walked to the kitchen and placed them by the sink. I was intent on helping wash the dishes as they had been dirted only because of me, but Edythe told me it would be an embarrassment to Esme if a guest had to clean up after themselves on their first visit. When she put it that way, I could only ask, "What would you like to do then? Should we begin the test on my shape change?" "We have plenty of time for that. Let's start with some dance lessons for the dance on Saturday." In a flash, we were joined by Alice. "Wait, before that I need to get his measurements." Before I could react, Alice was dancing around me with a cloth measurement tape. Some of the measurements made me slightly uncomfortable, especially when taken in front of my girlfriend. "What are you doing, Alice? Why the measurements?" "For your suit, silly. I need them so I can finish before the dance." "I can get my own suit, Alice. You don't need to deal with it." Alice turned her nose up in the air. "Not happening. I'll be fine getting one myself." "Nope." "But..." I was interrupted before I could say more. No. Nuuhu. Nope. No way. Not happening. This is not just about you, it's the first time Edythe has ever gone to a dance, so I want it to be perfect. Just give in, it's happening my way, even if I have to steal all the clothes in your room and leave only this suit in your closet on the day of the dance. Edythe was giving me a helpless smile as Jasper's voice preceded him into the room. Just give it up, Thomas. She is ruthless and unbending in these situations. Accept it gracefully and save yourself the trouble. By the time he was done talking, Jasper was standing next to Alice with an arm over her shoulders. Bowing to peer pressure, I threw my hands up in surrender. Fine, do as you please, you little gremlin. Good. Jasper, come lift me up, this oaf is too tall to get all the measurements by myself. The next hour was taken up by dance lessons. Edythe, Alice, Jasper, and I went to a large room that held a grand piano and other instruments in it. Alice picked the music, and we all traded partners, and slowly I learned to dance to the rhythm of the songs picked. It was fun, but just to tweak the nose of Alice I griped and groaned through the whole thing. Edythe picked up on the fact that I only complained about the dancing when I was with Alice and that it was still good-natured complaints. But when I was with her, I was focused and attentive to her only. She was convinced that this was one of the best days of her long life. When Alice proclaimed that I had learned enough to not step on her toes, Jasper decided that it was probably the best time to get on with the main event of the night. With a little dread in my heart, I prepared myself for the one-on-one conversation with Carlyle, but was surprised when Jasper had me follow him to the backyard. I looked questioningly at Jasper. Why are we going outside? Jasper just looked at me strangely. Isn't that what we decided? You would go out and change, then I would approach you. Ah, that. Sorry, my mind was on something else. Yeah, I am ready for that. Jasper didn't comment further, just went to a keypad on the wall and entered a code. Suddenly, all the windows were covered by a metal shutter and the house looked like it was ready to withstand a zombie apocalypse. Just moments later, everyone in the house was packed around the back sliding glass door that was the only glass not covered. I walked out and went into the nearby forest, deep enough that I could no longer see the house. It took me a good 5 minutes of walking before I felt comfortable enough to start taking my clothes off. Once I was naked and my clothes were folded and shoved in a tree, I reached into my mind and pulled the fire from my mind into my body all at once. The sensation of my bones going liquid was short, and in no time, I was standing on all fours. With the change complete, I felt wonderful. The strength I felt was still overwhelming. I roared out in joy, and as a warning to all in the area that a predator was nearby. I resisted the urge to run off into the forest and enjoy the freedom I felt in this form. Tonight had a purpose. I had to make sure I was safe to be around. The sugary sweet smell was very obvious in this area, and I could tell it was stronger the way I had come. After a moment of thought, I walked over to where my clothes were and started sniffing them. They had the scent of 3 different sweet smells. None of them had me reacting with the negativity or viciousness that I had for Henry. Maybe the burnt smell he had was the trigger, or maybe it was because he ran from me. This would take more experimentation, and that was what we were doing here. Letting out another roar, I started to move in the direction I had come, into the sweet smell. Chapter 55, I Can Hear Him. The Cullens as a group watched as Thomas walked into the woods. Each had their own thoughts about this experiment. Edward found himself comforting Alice. I know you are nervous, but Jasper is far from helpless. If anything goes wrong, I am sure we as a group can handle it. Alice looked up at Edward. They had a special bond. Him being able to see her visions helped them to relate to each other. I am just so used to being able to see. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so frustrating to not have my sight. Especially when Jasper just fades from view anytime Thomas is involved. It scares me, to not know. Edythe placed a comforting hand on Alice's shoulder. I trust Thomas, Alice. If he wasn't in control, then he would simply not come this way. I have done some research on tigers, and they do not look for trouble. So, if his mind is wholly tiger, it won't volunteer to walk into a den of vampires. Just coming our way will show if Thomas is still in somewhat control. Carlyle's voice sounded approving. That is a well thought out theory, Edythe. I never would have thought to look at it from a predatory point of view. No predator looks for trouble without reason, only humans do that. The family stood quietly and still as statues, waiting for Thomas to appear. Moments later, they all heard the sound of a roar coming from the forest. Edythe thought it sounded joyful for some reason. Emmett was the first to speak out. Wow, that sounded intense. He has to be huge to be that loud. I wonder if he would give me more of a fight than a bear. Edythe shook her head, the way he described tearing apart the British vampire. I don't think you want to find out, Emmett. Emmett gave a snort. That was just a boy bragging to his girlfriend. How much trouble would a one-armed vampire be anyway? I tore his arm off easily enough and would have done more if it wouldn't have made Carlyle unhappy. No one touches my rose without her permission. There was another roar from the forest that sounded a bit closer, or at least directed our way. Edythe blocked out Emmett's bragging and focused on Jasper's mind, knowing that he would be the first to see or hear Thomas. After a couple minuets of silence, wait, Jasper thinks he hears something. He can't hear any steps, but a faint growling. He thinks it's Thomas breathing maybe. The group focused more on the lone vampire standing in the backyard. The security floodlights made little difference to their eyes, but Esme insisted they were part of the house plans and needed to be there. Edythe focused on where Jasper was looking with her eyes, but her mind was still trying to see everything Jasper could. Jasper took a large intake of air and slightly squatted down. Emmett recognized the stance as a fighting one that Jasper used when he was serious. Jasper POV. I could hear a great thudding heartbeat and the rush of air that was soon accompanied by an exhaling rumble. Either my hearing has gotten better, or that is one big animal headed my way. I heard the sound of fur brushing past tree bark and focused where I expected to see Thomas's head, but to my surprise, I was looking at a white and black leg joint. I have seen tigers before, never hunted them, but I knew their average size was about waist high to a person while walking. However, as my eyes slowly rose to take in this white and black beast, I realized that I was looking at it eye to eye, and it was slightly lowering its head to do so. My lips peeled back slightly, and I tensed up even more. This was an apex predator, no doubt about it. I watched for any sign that it had hostile intent, and my mind reached out trying to ascertain its emotions. All I felt was a weariness of a predator coming into contact with another predator. The giant tiger slowly left the edge of the woods and showed himself fully to the whole family. When breathing is not necessary, the idea of gasping is a foreign one. However, everyone found that little bit of humanity once again as they all gasped at the size and outright majesty of the animal in front of them. Jasper heard Emmett speak with awe in his voice. Jesus, look at the muscles on that thing, it's an absolute monster. Thomas must have heard him as he turned his great head to the house and gave a low grumbling exhale that showed his ivory teeth. He then returned his attention towards me and started to sniff the air once again. I could tell his muscles were tense, but there was no aggressiveness to his emotions, just a weariness and cautious hope. I watched him for a few moments, careful not to lock eyes too much as that could be seen as a challenge. Keeping my mind on his emotions, I slowly relaxed my body and held out my hand to him. He took another step forward and took a large inhale through his nose. His sky-blue eyes looked at me, and I knew there was intelligence behind them. These were not the eyes of a wild beast operating on instinct. Suddenly, from the house I heard a squeal of delight from Edythe. I can hear him. Edythe POV. Taking in the sheer beauty and strength of Thomas in his tiger shape, I heard Jasper's conclusion that Thomas's eyes were clear and showed intelligence. With gritted teeth to prepare for the pain that always accompanied attempting to read his mind, I focused on Thomas. My mind leapt in happiness as I could feel the joy in his strength, his weariness of confronting another predator, and the happiness that he was still in control. All this told me one thing. I can hear him. I pulled the sliding glass door open and ran to Thomas as fast as I could. In a blink, I stood before his great head and looked into his eyes. I saw at first his surprise that I was there, and then his moment of concern before it filled with the affection I had become used to seeing him look at me with. I reached for his face and ran my hand through the fur on his cheek, which turned out to be bristlier than I thought it would be. He pushed his head into my body and rubbed his face on me. Then I heard his voice, "I'm in control. I don't have to worry about hurting you. I wish I could tell you how great this feels." I spoke out loud, "I can hear you, Thomas. I am so happy you are in control. You don't have to worry about hurting anyone by accident." I saw the look of surprise and happiness cross his eyes, and then he was suddenly worried as his mind quickly ran across a few things he thought I shouldn't know. He made the classic mistake of thinking about what he didn't want me to know before trying to bury it so I couldn't see. When I had read those thoughts from other guys, I found them irritating and immature, but now they took on a whole new meaning. He wasn't thinking anything too crass, rather tame compared to many thoughts I had heard over the years. But since it was him thinking like that, when I followed the ideas in my head, I felt anticipation instead of the disgust others made me feel. It was comforting to know he felt attracted to me. To hear it in his mind, not just his words, but to truly know what he felt with no filter. I stepped into his body, past his head, and wrapped my arms around his neck. I buried my face into his fur and finally admitted to myself that I truly and fully loved this person, with a passion that scared me a little. Thomas suddenly started making a stuttering sound from his mouth, like a forced breathing. It took a moment to realize that it was a tiger's equivalent to a cat's purr called prussin or chuffing. I read that it was a sound associated with contentment or relaxation. Slowly, everyone stepped out of the house and approached the hugging pair and Jasper, who still stood near Thomas and Edythe. He was feeling almost drawn to their emotional connection. Carlyle was the first to speak. "It seems that many of our worries have been put to rest. Do you feel any discomfort being in our presence, Thomas?" Thomas shook his head, and then I spoke the thought he was having. He says the anger he felt from Henry is completely absent from his mind. It surprised him a bit when I ran up to him, but there was no hostile reaction from any instinct he could feel. Esm smiled, "That is a relief." Following Thomas's thought directed at me, I let him go and joined my family. He wants to approach each of us in an effort to memorize our smells. He says that we each have a distinct smell to him in this form. They all stood still as he approached them individually, then with a glance and a few thoughts at Edythe, he turned back the way he came and quickly ran off. He is headed back to change and get dressed. It should only take a moment. Everyone walked back into the house, but Edythe stood there waiting for her Thomas to return. Chapter 56, Talking with Carlyle. Thomas POV. Walking back towards the house after getting dressed again, I could barely keep my feet on the ground. I was so happy. I was not a danger to my friends and family. It seemed like I had complete control over myself as a tiger. There definitely needed to be a few more tests, but at the moment, I didn't want to think about that. Before I could even clear the trees into the backyard of the Cullen house, Edythe caught me in a near painful hug. "You look so amazing in that form, and the idea that I can hear your mind is beyond awesome." I smiled down at the beautiful girl in my arms. "I am happier than you can possibly imagine right now. The thought of losing control and hurting you was too frightening to think about. What about you? Did my animal blood have any appeal to you in that form?" Edythe chuckled, "I didn't even think to take note of that. Too many other things on my mind at the time. Let's go inside." Once inside, I went directly to Jasper as he stood next to Alice. "I can't thank you enough for putting yourself at risk like that. If there is ever anything I can do to repay you, just ask and I will do everything I can to get it done." Jasper just smiled. "I don't hold debts for family, Thomas, but you better make her happy. She deserves it." As he spoke the last sentence, he turned his eyes to Edythe. "I want to fight you. You look strong, so it could be fun." Emmett barged in with a smile covering his face. There was no hostility in his eyes or actions, just a childlike exuberance. We can do that, but we will have to take it slowly. Build up to actually testing ourselves. The potential for hurting each other is outrageously high, and Rosalie has a vindictive look about her, so if I accidentally hurt you too badly, I don't want her coming after me. No worries there, I'm the strongest in the house, so I think I can take ya. I just smiled. Then we will have to make a plan for it, Emmett. But for now, it's getting late, and I still have to have a talk with your dad. I patted his shoulder and looked at Carlyle, who nodded his head, then tilted it in a motion for me to follow him and started making his way up the stairs to the 3rd floor. I brought Edythe's hand to my lips and kissed it. I will be back soon, sunshine. Then I followed Carlyle. We walked up the stairs and down a hallway to what I soon realized was his home office. It was by far the darkest room in the house I had seen yet. The back wall was one big built-in bookshelf that was almost completely full of what I would later learn were medical texts from all ages. The rest of the walls were covered in paintings. At first glance, they appeared to be done in each popular style over the decades, lasting back into the mid-1600s. My love of art pulled me to appreciate them. These are wonderful, sir. So much history and in such a variety. I remember Alice telling me that you loved the arts. I am glad you appreciate them. Please have a seat, son. Carlyle gestured to a pair of chairs in front of the desk as he sat down in his own chair. Pulling my eyes away from the paintings, I took a deep breath and sat down, giving him all my attention. After a moment to collect his thoughts, Carlyle started to speak. I do not mean this to be the stereotypical discussion about your intentions with the young woman I consider my daughter, but there will be bits of that in here, I'm sure. She was truly my first created child, and as such, she holds a special place in my heart. I can see that she cares for you very deeply, and that is enough for me. Your own inclusion in the supernatural world makes this much easier than if you had been a mortal. He paused for a breath, but I feel I must inform you about our peculiar emotional traits, as a vampire, I mean. Much of this is information I have gathered over my life, and a bit is what I have heard from others, so nothing I say is 100% accurate. When a person is changed to a vampire through the venom of another, they are subjected to a cellular change. The venom overwhelms and changes the cells it comes in contact with. It slowly changes the body into what you have seen with us here. The pain of the transformation is immense and beyond my ability to describe. It makes us stronger, faster, and frees us from the ravages of time. We no longer need to breathe, and if injured, we heal rapidly with only another vampire's venom leaving scars. We do, however, need to feed on blood an average of every few weeks after the first year. The easiest and most plentiful source of blood is obviously humans. He watched for my reactions before continuing. It also in a way locks us mentally into who we were at the time of the change. He paused for another moment. I don't think I'm describing it very well, but what I mean is that we don't change easily. Yes, we can still learn and mature mentally, but who we are in our minds stays the same, unless something comes along and creates enough of an impact on us that we change in response. For the longest time, I feared that I had made Edythe and Edward too young and that was why they had so much trouble finding a mate to share their life with, but this last year has happily proven that to be wrong. I thought for a moment, are you speaking of emotional maturity? Carlyle smiled, yes. Our emotions do not change very often, and when they do, it is a powerful and intense experience. An apt description would be that in terms of finding a life mate, we can go from a complete lack of interest in the idea, to utterly obsessed when the right person comes along. Because we don't have practice with certain emotions, they tend to override our self-control when first feeling them again. It is a bit academic, but when a vampire is a newborn and in its first year, all emotions are overwhelming and distracting to the point one needs to constantly suppress them. In doing so, some emotions that are not used for a while sort of get buried, and when uncovered, they can almost totally overwhelm us. If a mated pair loses one, the other will often go into such a rage that it overwhelms all caution in the need for revenge. I have seen it happen more than once, and it has left a lasting impression. When Carlyle took a moment, I broke in. You spoke of the most plentiful source of blood being human, but I understand you pioneered the use of animals as a substitute. May I ask why you even thought to do that? It was a question I felt only he could answer, so I had been looking for an opening to ask it. Carlyle looked over my shoulder and his eyes lost focus for a moment. When I received the bite that turned me, it was at a time that I felt protective over my fellow man. I was taught that hunting supernatural creatures was to save humanity. That was probably the most prevalent emotion I felt at the time, so looking at them as a food source weeks later revolted me. Knowing I could not resist my thirst long, I ran into the woods and away from any hint of civilization. Sadly, I then looked for ways to end my suffering before I lost control of myself and returned to take innocent lives. Fortunately, in my crazed wanderings, I came across a deer and fell upon it and satiated my thirst on it. Realizing that it wasn't too different than consuming the flesh of the animal, I was able to accept this substitute for human blood and learn to control my thirst. He shifted in his seat. Years later, I was to learn of another coven that also sustains themselves on animal blood. They are called the Denali Coven. They maintain a regular house in Alaska. We have spent time with them on occasion. We both lapsed into silence for a time. But then Carlyle broke it. Edythe is a very strong-willed woman, and now that you have come into her life, I can only celebrate her happiness. If you have any questions about our nature that you cannot ask her, then feel free to talk with me about it. Until then, you may as well come in, dear. I don't think either of us didn't know you were at the door the whole time. The door opened to reveal Edythe, then you should have invited me from the beginning. Chapter 57, Alone Time. As Edythe drove me home that night, we talked about more of her history. She was explaining her first encounter with Alice. So, Emmett and Edward were out hunting, and Alice basically broke into the house and started referring to everyone as if we had known her for years. We were all a bit intimidated by Jasper, who looked just as lost as us, now that I think back on it. You can only see a slight scaring on his face, but to us, it is much more obvious. We are able to see the many bite marks of those looking to take his life, and seeing him standing there made it obvious that they all died while he survived. To our eyes, he just radiates danger. Then she started moving all of Edward's stuff out of his room so she could claim it for herself and Jasper. She turned into my driveway and turned the car off. If I hadn't been able to read their minds, there is no telling how frightened the others would have been. I just chuckled in response to her story. It's not that I didn't care, but it also just seemed like inane chatter used to fill quiet spaces. As we sat there, I asked, "So did the evening go the way you wanted?" Edythe smiled at me. "Everything was wonderful, and I am so glad we don't have to worry about your control." I wasn't too happy with Carlyle embarrassing me with the whole dad talk, but his heart was in the right place, I guess. I smiled at her. I was glad to get the explanation on what to expect. Besides, I am pretty sure that Esme would have stopped him from being threatening in any way. "Yes, you should hear her thoughts every time you touch me. I think she is almost more excited about us than I am." We sat there for a few more minutes. "Well, I better get inside, it's getting late. You probably need to rest and get ready for classes tomorrow." I reached for the door handle, but her words brought me up short. "Actually, I don't. We don't sleep. You see." I blurted out, "You don't sleep? Do you not get tired?" "We don't. Our stamina is related to our appetite, not our sleep schedule." "What do you do during the night? When everyone is asleep?" "We all have our own interests. I keep up with our companies. Carlyle and Edward have a medical project they are working on. Just random stuff really." It was a bit hard to wrap my head around. No need for sleep. Just thinking about the stuff you could accomplish without the need to sleep was mind-boggling. I was at a bit of a loss. Should I invite her in? Do you want to come in? It will probably be boring for you. I will be going to bed in about an hour. Edythe's face brightened up. Let me drive home and come back. Just open your window and I will be back soon. I nodded my head and opened the door. See you soon. When I turned toward the house, I saw a curtain shift a bit and knew that Bella had been spying on us. When I reached the house door, I turned and watched Edythe back out of the driveway and drive off quickly. When I walked in the door, the first thing I heard was, "No good night kissing. I expected better of you." "What, you didn't have a good time meeting her parents?" I smiled at her. "It was great, had an awesome dinner. Spent time with her family, we talked a lot about family history. About the only thing that was weird was Edward insisting I tell him stories about you. He loved the one about your bad habit of sucking your thumb until you were 9 years old. Explaining the videos of your dance recitals at that ballet studio down the street from the Phoenix house went over well, also. He didn't seem too interested in your black makeup phase when you were 14, though. With as much of an emo vibe that he puts out, I thought for sure he would appreciate that one." Bella turned bright red and shouted, "You didn't?" I laughed at her look of embarrassment. "Nope, but keep pushing and I will." She started looking around the living room for something to throw at me, so I wisely ran upstairs laughing and closed my door. I knew I would most likely pay for that bit of amusement with oatmeal breakfasts for the next couple of days, but it was still worth it. I took some time to quickly clean my room up before opening my window. It was a bit of a struggle to open, looked like it needed some oil in the tracks. I will have to fix that, I told myself. After showering and packing my school clothes into my backpack to wear after working out the next morning, about 20 minutes had passed. I was wondering if working out for vampires even did anything for them when I heard a slight scraping noise, and suddenly Edythe was standing next to me. "You got here faster than I thought. What did you do, drive the car a few blocks, park it, and run back?" "Nope, I just buried the speedometer on any straightaway and drove as fast as I could on the turns. Took less than 15 minutes to get home. Then I ran back here, easy. I don't want to miss any time with you, I don't have to." As Edythe spoke, I watched her eyes travel over my room. She really focused on a pile of paintings that were stacked together. They were my failed thoughts for my art project. When she walked over to them and started looking, I spoke a bit defensively. "Those are failed paintings, I plan to trash them." She held up a painting of a bookshelf with random tapes and CDs stacked haphazardly. It was easy to make out some of the names of some. There was no rhyme or reason to the style. It had NWA and Too Short stacked on top of a Chris LeDoux's Greatest Hits album. Wilson Phillips leaning next to Metallica Black, and many other off-the-wall pairings. The project is music, and I was looking at different ways to express the idea, so I thought a music collection would be appropriate. But it just doesn't have the impact that I wanted to convey. "The next painting is..." She interrupted my explanation when she saw it. "No way. That's Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Eric Clapton. You painted each one in the middle of an iconic concert scene. I can't believe you meshed them so well, all on one painting. I am tempted to hang on to that one, I have to admit. But it still just doesn't match the feeling I want for the project. Why did you go with Eric Clapton instead of David Gilmour? In my opinion, Gilmour is great with Pink Floyd, but Clapton did his own thing, plus his work with multiple bands that made a solid impact on music. He branched out of his initial comfort zone and grew. Gilmour didn't, so far as I know. I felt the desire to sit down, but the only place to sit was my bed. I was feeling a bit shy at having Edythe in my room with the door closed. I was super happy she wasn't able to read my mind right now, but it didn't stop my thoughts. As I was trying to get control of myself, I reflexively sat down anyway and watched Edythe move around my room some more. Just a bit later, I heard Bella walking up the stairs. Edythe stepped into the closet where she couldn't be seen, and then Bella knocked on the door. She opened it before I even said anything. Charlie called a bit ago and said he would be staying at the station tonight again. He is working way too much. The man does love his job. I wonder if something happened to keep him there. I will ask him in the morning. You headed to bed? Yep, I will see you when I pick you up. Also, we need to go food shopping soon. Got it, sis, have a good night. You too. She then closed my door, and I heard her door close soon after. Edythe came out of my closet. You sure you are okay with me here? She asked awkwardly. So long as you are fine with it. I am a bit jumpy, but you are the first girl I have ever been in a room alone with other than family. I am sure you can hear my heart thumping. She smiled, that is music to my ears. I smiled at her, that my heart is beating so loud or that you are my first girl being alone with. Yup. Her lips popped to emphasize the last syllable of her reply. I scooted up the bed to lean on the headboard. She walked over and sat against the wall on the bed with her legs taking up the foot of my bed. She looked calm and comfortable. I guess her strength gave her confidence. If I could read her thoughts though, I would have found that she was just as nervous and worried as I was. She just had better control over her features as a vampire. You seem to be taking this tension better than me. Have you been in situations like this before? Edythe had a look of worry on her face when I asked her this. Well, not with a guy. But I did have a short relationship with Kate in Alaska. I heard Carlisle tell you about them a bit today. We didn't last very long. I think we were both trying to force something that wasn't there. Does that bother you? I took a moment to roll it around in my head. No, you have been alive for more than 100 years. It wouldn't be fair of me to expect you not to have had a life before me. The idea that it was another woman is kind of hot. How sexist does that make me? I laughed. She smiled. From the minds that I have read, you are in the majority. At least you are honest about it, though. Most guys would try and deny it. As much time as I have spent on college campuses, you can't imagine the thoughts directed at me and my sisters. I chuckled out loud, just seeing the way Jessica looked at both you and Edward with no change to the lust in her eyes the first day I watched you all walk into the lunchroom tells me I'm glad I don't have that power. My mind wanders enough on my own, it doesn't need encouragement from others. Edythe softly laughed at that. You should hear Lauren when she is around you. If you ever find yourself in a room alone with her and Jessica, I recommend you use all your strength to keep your pants buttoned up and find a crowded place as quickly as you can. Edward has talked me out of compelling that girl many times already. I was confused. Compel? What is that? Edythe thought about the time she tried to compel Thomas and looked a little ashamed. I have a second power that allows me to compel people to do what I want them to. It doesn't work if it's so against their nature that they would naturally resist. I tried making a serial killer stop killing, and it only lasted for a short while before he went back to it and had to be stopped by the police. But something simple like making Tyler obey all traffic laws unless there is an emergency is possible. There is a time limit if I use it on vampires as well. Jasper asked me to compel away his desire for human blood, but it only lasted a couple of hours, and he shook it off. She didn't bring up the time she tried to compel him, and it didn't take. So that's what you meant when you said you could convince people to go along with what you said when we were talking the other night. My question ended with a yawn. I looked at the alarm clock next to my bed. It was 11:40, and my body was so used to going to sleep at this time that I was finding it hard to stay awake. Edythe saw me rubbing my eyes and said, "Go ahead and lie down, I can leave if you want me to." I lay down, curling my legs to stop from crossing over hers at the foot of the bed. "If you want to, you should. I'm about to fall asleep, and I cannot imagine watching me sleep would be enjoyable at all." Edythe started to hum a little tune and watched as Thomas fell deeper and deeper into sleep. "Just being this close to you makes it so much better than most any night in my life, Thomas," she thought to herself. Chapter 58, Waking Up. My alarm pulled me from my dreams, and I rolled over to shut it off. Then I rolled back to my previous position and laid my head back on the cool pillow I was using. It was firm, cold, and felt just right. Then a hand brushed my hair back from my forehead, and I about had a heart attack. My eyes sprang open to see my arms wrapped around Edythe's thigh. Tell me I'm still dreaming. It's a good dream and much better than the prospect of doing something so embarrassing in the real world. At least so soon. A dreaded, but lovely, chuckle sounded from above my head. What, you use me all morning and want to deny it at dawn's light? Are you truly so frivolous? I sighed, there is no way I'm keeping my pride intact, is there? I held her leg tighter and snuggled my head into her thigh even more. She laughed softly at my actions and tapped my forehead with a finger. Scoundrel, hurry and let me go. You need to get ready for Jasper to get here. You have no idea how much your morning training means to him. I sat up and wiped the sleep from my eyes. I couldn't even pretend that seeing Edythe here first thing in the morning was beyond my expectations. I reached out a hand and held it to her face. Good morning, my sunshine. I really thought she would have gotten bored and left at some point in the night. Letting her cheek go before I could do something as stupid as try and kiss her with my morning breath, I got out of bed and made my way to the bathroom to wash my face and brush my teeth. I changed into my morning workout clothes I had brought to the bathroom with me, and returned feeling ready for the day. When I walked back into my room, Edythe handed me my backpack and followed me downstairs. In the kitchen, I started my normal routine of 4 eggs and a glass of orange juice. Edythe was watching my every move as if she wanted to burn it into her mind. I looked at my backpack. Looks like I will have to take it with me today since Charlie isn't here. How about I take it and pick you up this morning? I can text Bella, so she doesn't waste the trip. You needed to change at the police station, right? That would be very helpful, thank you. It is no big deal, Thomas. As pathetic as it sounds, I am hopeful to be even the least bit helpful to you, dear. Ugh, the feminist in me is screaming her head off. I can't believe I just said that. I laughed. Well, tell your feminist side that I promise to never take you for granted. You can also explain to her that I find myself just as devoted to making you happy. After cleaning up after myself, Edythe and I left the house and found Jasper waiting in his usual spot. Morning to you too, have a pleasant night. He had a large smile on his face. My face went a bit red, but Edythe just secured my backpack on her shoulder, leaned over and kissed my cheek. See you at the station. Then she ran off almost too fast for my eyes to follow. I brought my hand up to the cheek she kissed and just stared at where she had disappeared off to for a few moments. Jasper laughed at my almost confused expression. Come on, Thomas, let's go see how much you have improved lately. About an hour later saw me on my back, yet again, looking into the slowly brightening sky. You are still relying too much on your initial movement. You have to learn to change your strike as needed. Stop locking yourself into an action, it makes you predictable. And on the battlefield, predictable is dead. I got up and shook off some dirt from my back. I made to approach Jasper but kept myself angling his position, so I wasn't open to an easy rush attack. I was trying to make use of my longer reach to keep him at bay. He swung his arm in a throwing motion occasionally to try and distract my eyes and slowly inched forward, trying to make it look like he wasn't any closer to me. He had used this trick on me several times, and I had finally learned to read it by looking at his surroundings as much as his feet. The small stick by his foot was more than an inch behind him now when he was standing nearly on it before. He started a quick rush toward me, but because of the changing weather, the dirt was dry and easy to lose traction in, and his foot seemed to slip. He lost a little forward momentum. As quickly as I could, I reacted and grabbed his forward hand and brought him toward my own body. Then I twisted and put my free hand on his arm behind his bicep, locking his elbow straight, and dragged him face first into a nearby tree. What I didn't count on was the increased strength and speed I used, which caused Jasper to explode through the tree instead of being pinned to it like I planned. It looked like someone drilled a hole in the tree and set off a stick of dynamite. The trunk was about 5 feet around, and now the whole tree was falling on the top of us. I jumped to the side so the trunk wouldn't hit me, and Jasper lay face first on the ground after having been shoved through the tree. Before I could do much more than dodge falling branches, Jasper jumped up and shouted in excitement, "Yes, that was a well-executed throw. Excellent, Thomas." He was brushing the splinters of himself as he spoke. This was the first time I had thrown him when he wasn't intentionally letting me. I was simply amazed I had gotten a hold of him. We talked for a few moments about why it happened before we started our run to the police station. Once there, I checked on Charlie and took him to task for working so hard the last few days. He looked like shit, and I made sure to tell him about it. This man needed a woman to settle him down and make him look forward to going home. Bella and I get worried that you are working too hard, Charlie. You need to take care of yourself. I ended my rant there, and joined Jasper in the small gym room. Charlie had taken my complaints good-naturedly as he knew they came from worry for him and promised to take some time to rest soon. Working out lately had changed a good deal. I was now beyond any weight that we could put on the bar without making a spectacle of it, so Jasper and I had worked out a solution. We put the 400 pounds of weights on the bar, and while it looked like Jasper was spotting me, he was actually adding resistance to the bar so I could get a solid workout. The only thing I didn't like about this solution was that I didn't know exactly how much I was truly lifting. I had years of meticulously keeping track of that, and now I had no idea. But at least I was getting a workout once more. I had confirmed with Jasper that he could in fact not increase his max strength as his body couldn't increase muscle any longer after the bite. Now his strength was, like his stamina, connected to his appetite. The diet of animal blood made him a bit weaker than a vampire that was drinking human blood. It had something to do with the way their body processed the blood. My strength, however, was continually increasing. Jasper was trying to come up with a way to gauge it, but the closest he could get so far was that he was nearly putting triple the weight resistance on the bar as I was pushing, putting my lift somewhere between 800 pounds and 1,200 pounds. Jasper thought it was just over 1,000 pounds, and I was doing a solid ladder of 5, up and down. So, I was doing 20 lifts at over 1,000 pounds at a time and getting stronger as I went. My count was interrupted by Edythe as she entered the gym beside Charlie. "Here he is, can I do anything else for you, Edythe?" "No thanks, Chief." "Sorry, Charlie. It was great talking to you. I hope we can do it again soon." Charlie gave me a raised eyebrow and a somewhat discreet thumbs up before leaving Edythe at the doorway. She pulled my backpack off her shoulder and handed it to me. "Thanks, sunshine. I'll run and get a shower and be out in 10. Jasper was removing the weights from the bar. "I'll head out and ride to school with my hummingbird. See you at school, Thomas." After I finished my shower and got dressed, I went in search of Edythe. I found her talking to Jerry, the station dispatcher. As I walked up, I heard Jerry saying, "Oh dear, you better let it be known soon. There is talk of girls looking to tie him up and kidnap him. And not just ones your age either. If I were 30 years younger." "Well, enough of that. Good morning, Thomas. It was such a pleasure meeting your girlfriend." I smiled at her. "Good morning, Jerry. I am glad she introduced herself to you. Will you make sure that Uncle Charlie goes home today? His idea of sleeping on that couch in his office isn't proper rest. I just know he will try and put in a full day, thinking he is fine." "You got it, dear, he really needs to find someone to set him straight. It just doesn't do to be single for so long." She turned her eyes to Charlie's office. "I think my niece Betty needs to come take me to lunch today and see if she can't turn his head." Edythe smiled at Jerry. "Well, it was wonderful meeting you, Jerry. I will see you a lot in the future as I will be taking Thomas to school in the mornings now, at least when I can." I took her hand and walked her out of the building to her car, where I found a covered plate in the passenger seat. Putting it in my lap as I sat down, Edythe spoke, "That's for you. Mom spent all night looking stuff up on the internet and getting nutritional advice from Dad. We cooked it when I got home. Esm sure does love cooking again, I think she missed it terribly." I lifted the plate cover to find what looked like a stack of pancakes. When I took the top one, I found that it was actually a rib-eye steak and pancake sandwich. God, I loved this girl and her mother. Chapter 59, Sunshine. As she backed into a parking spot near Bella's truck, Edythe swore, "Shit, I forgot." She then turned to me, "My family won't be able to come to school the next 2 days, it will be too sunny. And honestly, I need to hunt tomorrow. But I can still come to you at night, if that's okay." My first thought was this girl is out to test my self-control. I just know it. But then a question dawned on me. Will the sun hurt you like in lore? She laughed, "No, but it makes us stand out way too much, so we have to hide." Could I see? "So long as it doesn't hurt you." Edythe thought for a moment, "I can show you Wednesday after school. I just hope it doesn't shock you too much, it makes us look, well, not human, I guess is the best way to put it." I tried to comfort her, "Your appearance under the sun won't change the way I look at you, my sunshine. It is just something I would like to see." She looked into my eyes, "Why that nickname for me? Something that I can never stand in with you in front of normal humans. It makes me both happy and sad at the same time, so I wonder." I took her hand in mine, "Do you remember when you were human, and you walked out into the sunshine after being inside for a while, or the first sunny day after a long winter? The feeling of warmth and welcome that the sun brought to you. The way your skin seemed to open up and draw the heat into your soul." Edythe frowned, "It is a vague memory, one I haven't thought about in a very long time. I am sorry if the comparison brings back hurtful memories for you. But to me, that is how I feel when I see you. My whole being feels like it opens up and takes in warmth from your simple look. It warms me to the core that you want to be with me, and my heart feels like it will burst when you smile." I know these are flowery words, but it's hard to put feelings into words without overthinking them. I leaned forward a bit, looking into Edythe's eyes, and they stared at me like they wanted to pierce mine to see into my mind. She started to lean forward as well, but then at the same time, we both became aware of a group of people standing in front of her car, a couple of them were even taking pictures. I turned my head to look at them, a growl escaped my throat. These morons had just interrupted my first kiss with Edythe and my anger started to spike. Edythe's laugh cut through the red I was seeing. "Did you seriously just growl at them?" I looked down a little sheepishly, "They interrupted us, damn right I did. Come on, Tiger. Let's head to class." She opened her door and got out as I grabbed my backpack and got out, placing the plate and its cover back on the seat. I closed the door and walked over to Edythe and took her hand as we moved through the crowd still standing around her car. We both noticed that a couple of people turned their phones our way to get a picture of us walking hand in hand together. However, most were still focused on the car itself. I dropped Edythe at her government classroom and made my way to art class, where Alice was waiting for me. "So have you finished your painting for the project?" I sighed. I actually finished another idea I had, but it still doesn't feel right. I am not even sure what part of music I am trying to convey. "How's yours coming along? Still waiting for your muse?" She smiled happily, "Yep, it should happen in the next couple of days. I see the vision, but I still need to be there in the moment and feel it so I can get it on canvas. We have until Friday after this one to turn them in, so it will be done in plenty of time." I noticed that several of my classmates were turning in their seats to look at me every once in a while, so I asked Alice, "What's with the new attention? You hear anything about me this morning?" "Oh, that." She waved her hand dismissively, "It's just out that you and Edythe are dating now. I would imagine that Edythe is also rubbing it in a few people's faces to get the point across." I smiled and turned my attention towards Ms. Ross, who was going over the different advancements that paint went through in the 1750s. At that time, it became optional to purchase paint instead of making it yourself, as was required before the market for such things became more commonplace. After class, I walked with Jasper and Alice as was our habit and made my way to government. When I walked in, I saw Bella in her seat and a classmate, Terry, walking away from her with a stony expression. As I sat next to her, I asked, "Another dance invitation you turned down, I take it?" She looked at me with a martyred expression. "This dance needs to pass so I don't have to keep dealing with it. Girls, I have never talked to hate me because the boys they asked are waiting to see if I am going with someone yet. I have tried to make it clear that I won't be in town that day but still." I gave her my reassuring smile. "Don't worry, sis, it's almost over. Then you just have to worry about prom." She groaned and put her head on her desk, covering it with her arms. I just laughed at her melodramatics and turned my attention to the teacher. After that class was over, I made my way to biology, not surprised by the random looks I was getting as I walked. Once I walked into biology class, I saw small sharp lances and blood typing cards passed out at each table, and made a mental note to warn Bella so she could get excused from her own biology class before she had to be escorted to the nurse's office. Mr. Banner started out with a speech about a blood drive coming and wanted to get everyone aware of their blood type to encourage them to donate. I had no problem doing the test and got what I expected. I knew I was O+, not terribly rare, but regardless, with my shifting abilities now, there was no way anyone was getting my blood. I even made sure to take my card with me at the end of class. I planned to destroy it at home. I quickly made my way to math and looked inside to see if Edythe was at her seat yet. When I saw she wasn't, I waited outside for her to steal a few moments with her before class started. When she appeared, I walked toward her, and we stood together in plain view of everyone. I took her hand and asked, "How is your morning going?" She smiled at me. "Better now, not that it was bad before. It appears Rosalie and Alice are spreading it around that you are now off the market. I have been getting some serious glares today. It is making me weirdly happy." We talked a bit about classes, and she was highly amused by my telling of Bella's situation and her response to it all. She was still laughing as we made our way into the classroom just before the bell. The hour passed quickly, and it was time to head to lunch. Before Edythe stood up, though, she asked, "Would you like to sit with me today for lunch? I am sure everyone would be happy to have you at our table." I smiled at the thought. "I can wait for you outside the cafeteria if you don't want to walk with me to my locker. Would you mind if I brought Bella with me?" She smiled. "I think she will be otherwise occupied during lunch today. My slow brother is finally making a move, I think." I shook my head in amusement. "Oh, she is going to love the attention that will bring. Though maybe the boys will stop asking her to the dance if they see them together." We walked a bit slowly to my locker, taking our time to drop off my books. After closing my locker, I took her hand again, and we walked to the cafeteria. When I got in line, I noticed Bella walking to a table where Edward was sitting alone. She was only carrying a lemonade bottle with her. I guessed she was doing one of her "I don't wanna eat" days. Edward saw me watching them and gave me a slight nod, which I returned. If he could read my mind, he would be getting the big brother "don't you hurt her" speech. But considering Edythe was standing next to me, I was sure he understood. Chapter 60, Dinner and a Movie. I continued to look around the cafeteria as we moved through the lunch line, and it was easy to see that most everyone was watching the table that now held Bella and Edward. Our normal table had Mike looking constipated as he watched the two talk. Tyler was trying to get Lauren's attention back on him and eventually succeeded. Jessica was looking at Mike like she was trying to muster up some courage. I reached the cashier and paid for mine and Edythe's food over her objection. She didn't stop until I whispered that I only got about half my normal amount and would eat hers, so it didn't go to waste. She finally nodded, but I expected to have this conversation often. I knew that to her, money meant less than water. But I still have my pride, and I needed to feel that I wasn't only taking from her. I knew that every relationship had to be an exchange for it to be healthy. When I sat down at the Cullen table, I had Edythe on my right and Alice on my left. The main talk around the table was the planned camping trip for tomorrow. Emmett was excited at the prospect of the bears coming out of hibernation. Jasper was just happy to spend a couple of days away from the temptation of human blood that was school for him. Edythe was pushing the food on her plate around with her fork when she suddenly stiffened, and I saw the metal fork bend in half in her fingers. She turned to look at the table I usually sat at with a very unfriendly look in her eyes. "That child is seriously pushing it," she muttered. Rosalie looked at Edythe questioningly. It was amazing how Rosalie could convey her thoughts with just an expression on her gorgeous face. "She is planning to make up stories to instigate bad blood between the boys. I don't think anyone would try anything like picking a fight, but the idea she wants it to happen." She let the sentence fade off. I tried to calm her down a bit. "No worries, sunshine. She will get over it. She is far too shallow for deep thinking, so we will see it coming a mile away. But just in case, I will make a few comments over the next couple of days to get her in line. Jessica seems to have a good hold on her, she usually stops it from going too far." I swapped out lunch trays with Edythe and then looked over my shoulder at Ben and Angela. I wanted to make sure they were not getting caught in the crosshairs. Angela was looking at her math book, probably trying to get the assignment done early, and Ben caught my look and gave me a not-so-subtle thumbs up and a smile. Edythe smiled at my friend's antics and said, "Those two will make a wonderful couple. I will have to keep an eye on them and see if they have interests that lie in one of our company's goals. It's a little early to start scouting them, but they have great potential." I smiled at the thought. It made me happy that Edythe liked people who were genuinely good. I reminded myself to ask her later if she intentionally helped people she took a liking to. Alice stood up. "I'm going to go introduce myself to Bella, it's about time she meets me, and I need to remind Edward of something." That sparked a thought. Wasn't there something I needed to do during lunch? The bell rang and I shrugged it off as unimportant. Gym class was nothing special. We had moved from volleyball to badminton, and I was having trouble staying on my side of the court. The impulse to chase the birdie down every time was real. No way I was telling anyone about my impulse control issues, though. My life would be filled with cat toy presents until the end of my days if they ever found out. As I was walking to my last class, I ran into Edythe. I knew her class was nowhere near here, so she must want to tell me something important. When I got close, she smiled and said, "Bella had to be taken home for nearly fainting in biology class. Edward was nearby and decided to take her home to make sure she was safe. She left her key in her truck so you could drive it home." I laughed a little. I forgot to tell her about the blood typing in biology during lunch. I knew I was overlooking something. Oh well, it gives her and Edward more time to talk. It sucks that I won't be riding with you after school though. Will I see you before your trip tomorrow? She shook her head, looking a little sad. "I think me and Edward will push to leave tonight so we can get back earlier. I want to be ready to take you to a nice spot after you get out of school on Wednesday. I need to keep my promise and show you how I look under the Sunday. Then I will wait until then. Text me if you get in service range." After we separated, I went to Spanish class and told Ms. Jeff about Edward's absence. She shrugged it off because she knew that his Spanish was superior to her own. In fact, me, Edward, and Emmett could test out of the class anytime we wanted. After class, I walked to Bella's truck and started it before walking over to Edythe's car. She parked close, and I had plenty of time for the truck to warm up. I watched as Edward's shiny Volvo entered the parking lot and picked up Emmett and Rosalie. Jasper and Alice, though, appeared to prefer riding with Edythe. I walked over with every intention of giving Edythe a goodbye kiss, but under the stares of her family and her own dark eyes, my courage faltered. I settled for a hug and a kiss on her cheek before retreating to Bella's truck. Having seen that Bella didn't eat lunch and also hearing of her near-fainting spell, I decided to stop for ingredients for her favorite meal. Goulash was different for every family, but ours used a mix of spicy tomato juice, snappy toms if they had it, or spicy V8 if they didn't. Other than that, it was basically just spaghetti with elbow noodles instead of spaghetti noodles. This was a dish that was guaranteed to make her eat 2 bowls and complain about how full she was the rest of the night. When I pulled her truck into its normal spot, I was happy to see Charlie's cruiser in the driveway. Come to think of it, have we ever had this meal with Charlie? I grabbed the groceries and my backpack and made my way through the drizzle that was falling. When I walked into the kitchen, Bella came over and started to go through the bags I set on the counter. I got dinner tonight, sis. Don't want you fainting while cooking, now do we? She glared at me and kicked my shin as Charlie caught our words. What's this now? Bella was quick to answer to keep me from exaggerating the situation. They were doing blood typing in biology today, and I got a little queasy. You know how I am around blood. Oh yeah, guess that makes sense. You kids have anything going tonight? We could hit the Blockbuster and pick out a movie to watch. We both answered that we had no plans, so I recommended they go and choose a movie while I got dinner started. I had changed into my comfy house clothes and just started adding the browned hamburger to the snappy tom sauce and can of tomatoes when they got back. Bella was holding the movie in her hand and flashed the title at me, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. That was an odd pick for Bella, but she answered my questioning look with, Dad has never seen it. I thought we could all use a laugh, so it was an easy choice. What followed was a normal, happy family night with Charlie enjoying a new movie and later filled with a bit of homework. That night, I was woken up by bad dreams a couple of times and slept rather restlessly when I forced myself back into bed. Chapter 61, Port Angeles Plans. The next morning, I took my backpack and put it in Charlie's car as usual and then ran off to the spot Jasper and I usually sparred. After looking around to make sure I was alone, I got undressed and shifted into my tiger form. Then for the next hour I just ran around the woods experimenting with my speed and strength. I thought it best to get a handle on it before the vampire vs tiger match Emmett was so desperate for. Learning to strike at a tree without extending my claws was a bit challenging at first, but I got the hang of it after a while. I took a bit more time than normal as I wouldn't be able to do any lifting at the gym. But when I figured it was close enough to time, I got changed and ran to the police station for my shower and waited for Bella to arrive. The skies were clear, so after giving my goodbyes to Charlie and Jerry I waited for Bella outside in the sun. Bella arrived and we made a beeline for school and decided to waste some time at the outside lunch tables that had most everyone there basking in the morning sun. Mike had come over with a puppy dog look on his face and started to talk to Bella about the weather. Finally, he got to the point and told Bella, "So Jessica asked me out to the dance this Saturday." He ended the sentence like it was a question toward Bella, as if asking if she was okay with it. Bella smiled and happily said, "That's great, you guys will have a wonderful time together." Mike looked a bit sad. "Well, I didn't tell her yes. I said I had to think about it. I was hoping you were going to ask me." He must have finally hit the end of Bella's patience with him because her tone took on a firmness she rarely used. "I am not going to be in town. Besides, it's obvious that Jessica has feelings for you, and I won't be stepping between you two. You should tell her yes if you want to go, and do it soon, so she isn't kept waiting." All Mike got out of her speech was a confused look on his face. "And Jessica likes me? You really mean it?" Then he stated to smile like a fool. "Cool." He wandered off as I held my laughter in. That idiot doesn't deserve Jessica, or Lauren for that matter. Girls are just interchangeable fantasies for him. Only looking at what he can get from them, not what they can share. Bella sighed. "I agree, but Jessica really likes him. I hope she doesn't get burned by him. All it would take is one mistake, and her college life would be over before it begins, and Mike doesn't strike me as the supportive baby daddy. He is a nice guy, just a bit too popular in town for his own good." College would get him out of town and settle him down, I bet. Shortly after that, Angela and Ben came walking over to our table hand in hand. It looked like they had finally gotten together. Angela looked at both Bella and me. Would you guys be interested in going to Port Angeles tonight to go dress shopping with me? My mom doesn't want me to go alone, and Ben has to work. Thomas coming along will keep the creeps away also. Bella looked at me, and seeing my nod, sure, we can go. I will just let Charlie know, and we can head out right after school. Mind if I ask Jessica to come with? She will be needing a dress too, I bet. Angela smiled, I am fine with that. Maybe she will drive so there will be more room, and maybe we can get out of there before dark. Bella took the verbal hit to her truck's space and speed with a smile. I will talk to her in class later, we should know by the end of lunch. Just then, the first bell rang out and everyone started gathering their stuff to head to class. It appeared that the teachers were itching to get out into the sun as well. Ms. Ross had us all go outside to the edge of the forest and pick something to draw. After that class though, it was back to being stuck indoors. At least all the window blinds were open, allowing all the sunlight possible inside. I missed Edythe in math class, and by the time lunch rolled around, I was ready for the day to end. When Bella and I sat at the table with the group, the first thing I heard was "What? No Cullens to sit with today?" from Lauren. I wasn't sure who that was a jab at, me or Bella, but I didn't take it very well. However, before I could respond, Mike spoke up. They are our friends and welcome to sit with us when they want. If you don't like it, you are welcome to sit somewhere else. While this earned a bit of my respect, both Lauren and Tyler gave him some dirty looks that he didn't react to. Just before lunch was over, Bella turned to me and Angela, "Oh, about going to look for dresses, can we do it tomorrow after school instead? Jessica and Mike have a last-minute date planned for tonight." Angela looked happy. "Actually, that would be perfect, my mom would be able to look after my brothers, so no need for a sitter." I smiled and shook my head. "Looks like it will have to turn into a girls' night then. I have plans with Edythe after school tomorrow. They will get back from their camping trip in the afternoon, so we already made plans. She is planning an evening picnic in a place she says is special to her." This comment got me a few dirty looks, a few envious ones, and a catcall. I just shrugged them off. Gym and Spanish passed in a long, very slow, blur, and once it was finally over, Bella and I went food shopping. After putting the groceries away, I went up to my room and stared at another blank canvas I set up for my art project. Still not coming up with any ideas, I walked away from it and sat on my bed with my sketchpad and just started to draw randomly. I heard the house phone line ring a couple of times until Bella answered it. Moments later, Bella yelled up the stairs, "Thomas, phone." It struck me as odd, everyone I know has my cell number. Why would someone call the house line for me? I hurriedly got up and went down the stairs two at a time, then saw Bella holding the phone towards me as she stood in the kitchen entryway. I took the phone. "This is Thomas." "Hello, just to confirm. I am speaking to Thomas Naresh Raizel." "Yes, that is my full name. Can I ask what this is about?" "I represent the Spector and Ross law firm from Denver, Colorado, and need to confirm your residential city so we can bring you the paperwork to finalize the execution of the will for one Nancy B. Raizel. This will have to take place after your 18th birthday, which we have on file as March 31st. Can you confirm this is correct?" "Yes, my birthday will be the 31st of this month." I responded dully. In cases like this, we prefer to set up a time at the local police station so that all parties can be accommodated, and any certifications can be made immediately if they prove necessary. You will need to be present and have your social security card as well as photo ID and, if possible, your birth certificate. Will that work for you? For photo ID, I have a non-local driver's license. It's an Arizona registered license. Oh, I also have a passport, that's a picture ID also. I forgot about it. My mind was racing, and I was stumbling over my words. Random thoughts were hitting me as I tried to focus. As long as they aren't expired, either would work, hun. Will the 1st of April work for you? What am I thinking? It's your 18th birthday, so I'd better give you a day to recover. How about the 2nd, and I will call you with a time once we set it up with the sheriff's office. That will be fine. Hope to see you there. As I took the phone from my ear and began to hang it up, I caught, "Are you okay, dear? You don't sue." Click. I barely registered that I had hung up on her and just stood there. Chapter 62, More Nightmares. My ribs felt like they were on fire, my left leg and right arm were numb and not responding very well. Someone pushed me aside as they got up and ran away. People were crying all around me, my mind couldn't make sense of what was happening. My eyes focused on the strangest things, like a little girl lying in a pool of red liquid had mismatched socks on. My mother would never let me outside without matching socks. A man ran past me with a purse in his hands. I wondered if he stole it and that why he was running. Men don't carry purses. Johnny made fun of me for carrying a bag. He said men only carried a briefcase or backpack. My ears started ringing, like I was too close to a bell. Mom! I looked around, I tried to slide away from the people on the ground. Johnny was going to make fun of me for sliding on my butt like this, but my leg won't work. I wish Mom would stop seeing him or at least stop bringing him around me. I felt someone touch my shoulder and turned to look. Mom! She hugged me and cried at the same time. Come on, sweetheart, we need to get out of here. My leg won't work. I really hate Johnny. Can you stop seeing him? He kicked my leg and made me fall. Yes, I promise he will never be around us again. Good, that's what I wished when I blew out my cake candles this year. Okay. Honey, let's try to hide. The bad people could see us any minute. She tried to pull me, but she didn't have the strength. I wasn't going any faster than I had been by sliding on my butt alone. I still tried to help her as much as I could. I looked down and tried to slide my butt the way she was pulling, but then something wet splattered on my head and I heard 3 bangs really close together. Or did I hear the bangs first? The next thing I knew, Mom fell over the top of me and lay down. Her eyes were open, but they didn't see me. I managed to get my knee under me and lean towards her. My working arm tried to shake her. Mommy! Only babies cry for their mommy, Thomas. Shut up, Johnny, Mom said you won't be around anymore. So go away. I looked at the red pool forming around my mother. Blood isn't supposed to look like this. In the games, it's a much brighter color. Isn't it? I heard footsteps coming towards me. Time seemed to skip, and I found myself looking up at the barrel of a rifle, and then I heard another bang. The man with the rifle dropped straight down, falling on my mother's body. I started to hit him with my good arm, but he wouldn't move, so I used the one I couldn't feel very well. Get off my mommy! Get off of her! A fire seemed to erupt in my head as this man wouldn't get off my mother. I kept hitting him and screaming in anger, until my right arm looked weird. It was still numb, but now I saw something white sticking out of my skin. Even as I looked at the bone sticking out of my right forearm, I kept screaming for the man to get off my mother and hitting him with my left fist. I didn't hear anyone approach over the sounds of my screaming in rage, but I felt someone putting their hand on my shoulder. You're safe now, son. My name is Officer Randall. The man in a police uniform looked at me, asking me something or telling me something, but I didn't understand him. Get him off my mom. Please. The officer realized what I was doing and helped me push the man off my mother. Then he turned his head and started to puke next to us. I watched as he vomited twice more and then started to dry heave with tears running down his face. He quickly wiped his mouth on his sleeve and turned to me, You stay here, I have to see if there are more of them. Someone will be here to help you very soon. He then started to move deeper into the mall, and I was alone with my mother. My eyes popped open, and my breath came in fast pants. I tried to settle down and take deep breaths to regulate my thundering pulse. Then a thought broke into my head: why am I staring at a wall instead of the ceiling? I started to swing my head around and again felt something was just slightly off. Then it hit me, I shifted. There was now a 3-meter tall, 6-meter long, Bengal tiger lying in my bed, and I was down another pair of sweats. A deep exhale came out as a growl that I quickly tried to stop midway. The last thing I needed was for Bella to hear me and come in to comfort me, only to see me like this. It took me about 5 minutes before I had calmed down enough to change myself back to human form. That could have been very bad. I looked at the time and saw it was less than 3 minutes before my alarm went off. I hit it early and gathered some clothes before heading to the bathroom. Washing my face, I pushed away the thoughts about what could have happened. I knew my dreams would come back heavy around this time of year, but before I didn't have the potential of turning into an oversized cat. I relaxed my mind and went about my morning routine to further calm myself down. Once I had eaten, I put my bag in Charlie's cruiser and ran into the woods behind the house. Taking a page from Sam, I had brought a band to tie my shorts around my leg before shifting and blasted through the woods. As I ran, I felt a pressure against my mind that signaled Sam was out this morning as well. I reached out to him and he accepted me into his mind. "Morning, Sam. How's your morning going?" "Morning? What time is it?" "Almost 6 in the morning. What did you do? Lose track of time?" "Yeah, Emily is still being difficult. So, I needed to run some energy off last night. Must have lost track of the time. Some of what she says is pretty hurtful, even though I can tell she doesn't really mean it. She just loves Leah so much and feels like returning my feelings would be a betrayal. At least that's what I think. I pray to God that imprinting is only a wolf thing. No way I want to have that happen to me." I kept that thought away from Sam. The idea that my own nature could dictate who I devote myself to was a scary thought. "What are you doing so early in the morning?" Sam broke into my thoughts. "I usually exercise in the morning, but my partner isn't here today, so I'm just spending time shifted to get used to it more." I went on to explain how Jasper has been helping me work out and some of the training we did. Sam just went quiet as he listened. "How can you stand to be so close to a leech like that? Aren't you afraid he could lose control and attack you, drink your blood?" I tried not to take offense at the term used against my friend. Not really. To be honest, when Jasper struggles with his thirst, it makes me appreciate him that much more. Just think of how hard they must fight to swear off their natural food source for something less appetizing. Just imagine, with our increased hunger as shifters and someone made your absolute favorite dish and placed it in front of you. But you made yourself fight the urge to eat it and reach over it to eat something you can barely stomach. Then throw in the idea that you are starving all the time. I let that sink in for a moment. The fact that they fight so hard against their nature just shows how strong their commitment to not being a monster is. To Sam's credit, he thought a while before replying, "The fact that it's their nature to feed on humans is what gets me, Thomas. It isn't natural to my way of thinking. One slip on their part and it means a life has ended. No matter the remorse they may feel later. They are still dangerous. That will just have to be something we disagree on, Sam. I hate to put it out there. But I think if I was able to imprint, I would have imprinted on Edythe already. I just can't see a life without her anymore." Sam's reply stunned me to the core and caused me to stumble as I walked through the forest. "I felt that way about Leah once too, Thomas." Then I felt him break our connection. Chapter 63, Her Brother's Jeep. An hour later and Sam's words still haunted me as I trotted through the woods. The only thing keeping me from a full-blown panic was the knowledge that wolves in nature, mated for life, and tigers were more open with their relationships. Not having prides like lions but having multiple partners that they returned to during mating seasons so long as the female stayed in the male's territory. Wow, this could get complicated. Let's hope my more human nature overrides my need to mate with every strong female I come across. Still, it is something I need to talk to Edythe about. On a less emotionally explosive subject, I had found that while I could move exceptionally fast, it was only for a short time. My body was definitely not built for long-distance running, only able to keep top speed for about 10 minutes. That may not sound like long, but it only took me 4 minutes to get to the other side of the Quileute reservation, and that was not starting from the border but much deeper in the woods. I also had a comfortable trot that I could move at when I wanted to cover distance, but my natural speed was a sort of lazy walk that challenged anything near to get in my way. Tigers, it seemed, were not in a hurry unless it came to hunting or fighting. Having my shorts tied to my leg was a bit hard to get used to and would not be something I did on the regular. I think I may put a few caches of clothes out in backpacks like I had thought about before. Get some waterproof ones and find good spots to get them when I need to. One near the house and one near the school would be a must. I dropped this line of thinking when I came near the edge of the forest closest to the police station. Shifting back and putting my shorts on, I realized it would be hard to explain my lack of shoes if anyone noticed. Yup, simply carrying shorts around on my leg was just not going to cut it. I walked in and was in luck. Charlie was in his office doing paperwork. "Morning, Charlie." I called out and moved straight to the locker room to shower and get dressed. When I came out, I saw Jerry putting her purse in her desk drawer and greeted her. Then went to Charlie's office. When I walked in, he looked up from a file on his desk. "Hey kid, still enjoying the sunshine? Haven't seen much of it yet today." "I ran in the woods for my morning workout." "Don't worry, I didn't go too deep, just wanted to change up my run this morning." Charlie just gave me a wry smile. "I just ask that you stay safe, kid. Way too many people get lost in the woods. Best to keep to the trails, damn fool part-time hikers get lost all the time and we have to hunt them down and save their lost selves. Don't want you disappearing on me." "No worries, did Bella tell you about the phone call yesterday? About my mom's will reading?" "Yeah, we talked about it some. I will keep an ear out for their call. I didn't know something like this would need to take place at a police station. Weird to me, but it's big city rules, I guess." He just shook his head. "I am not sure what the deal is either. Not like Mom was some big-time CEO or rich woman with huge money. Only thing I have seen about her insurance was the monthly care money Renee got, and well, now you are getting since I moved here." Charlie looked uncomfortable for a moment. "Well, about that. Renee and I were planning to wait, but I guess it won't hurt to tell you early. The money sent for your care has all been put in a savings account for you. We thought it best to help you prepare for college or whatever you wanted after school. I know Renee had to dip into it a couple of times when things got tight in Phoenix, but we wanted to give you the best start possible. Also, Renee and Nancy's childhood home is still here in town, and I figure that may be what the lawyers are coming here for. Your mom bought Renee's share of the house and land when Renee made it clear she wanted to move somewhere warmer. I am assuming that will come to you after your birthday, but I hope you will consider staying at my place until summer or you are out of school. A big change like that could mess with your schooling." I had never really thought about that. Technically, with this birthday, I could live on my own. I would be a legal adult. I took a deep breath. I haven't ever thought about it, to be honest. I have never thought about being on my own. I have been so dependent on Bella and Renee, and now you. It's strange. I shook my head. Seeing me struggle with my thoughts, Charlie spoke. "No rush, kid. You are welcome to stay like I said. Bella would probably have an opinion to share on the idea herself. You're the brother she never had." Speaking of Bella, she just pulled up. "Thanks, I guess I have a lot to think about. See you at home." "Not today, I will be doing a double." "You will be home alone with Bella going to Port Angeles to shop. Call me if you need anything." "Will do, but I will be spending time with Edythe, so I should be okay." He smiled and shook his head. Don't do what I did. Be safe and take it slow. Bella double-tapped Red's horn, and I raised my hand to Charlie. Later, don't work too hard. The ride to school was quiet. Bella seemed like she had something on her mind. Something she was working through. I left her in peace and tried not to think about seeing Edythe later today. That would just make the day drag on longer. As we started to walk away from Bella's truck, she handed me her keys. Jessica, Angela, and I are going shopping right after school, so I will need you to drive my truck home. I think I will go to a bookstore while I'm there. I found one that has a book about local legends that I think would be interesting. Want me to look for anything for you? No thanks, sis. Just have fun and be careful. The day went by fairly quick. The girls were all discussing dress and skin tone color matching along with hair salons in the area. I just relied on my old head nod and half-hearted answers that seemed to go along with what they wanted to her. Before I knew it, I was driving Old Red back to the house by myself. The sun was out, and everyone had their vehicle windows down and their music as loud as it would go as they drove. Maybe I should get Bella that new stereo. There is lots of room behind these seats for good speakers as well. Lost in my thoughts as I pulled in front of the house, grabbing my school bag and slamming the truck door closed, then made my way inside. I was debating calling Edythe to let her know I was home and see what she had planned, but resisted doing that right away. I instead went to the kitchen and made a few sandwiches that I took to my room and ate as I prepared for my date. About 30 minuets